Welcome to the G.N.A podcast, Games, Nerds, and Alcohol, where we start off the new year by pre-graining and watching a movie. A movie that we're about to talk about. Actually, we're going to talk about a whole bunch of movies because, yeah, there's a whole quintuplet thing going on here. We're talking about The Matrix tonight. Yep. And Vintage is here. He's got some Matrix porn in his background. I like it. I'm trying to figure out what Damok's got for his background, but I like it. And I've probably snapped out again and frozen. That's perfectly okay, though, because, yeah, that happens. How you doing, Vintage?
I'm hanging in there. It's been an interesting week. It's been an interesting year. And I'm here to talk about The Matrix.
Yeah, you are. Yes, you are. Dude, man, I got to admit, you probably did the most homework for this one. I got through the original Matrix, and I got through the Matrix Revolution twice.
You got to bet. Resurrections is the new one. Reloaded is number 2. Revolutions is number 3.
Oh, Revolutions. I said Revelations.
Yeah. So I ran into an issue where I was like, yeah, I'm so excited for this. And then I realized, hey, I've only seen 1 all the way through in one sitting. 2 and 3, I've had to piece together over the last decade because I've randomly saw them 20, 30 minutes at a time on TV. I understood the story, but I never actually watched it all the way through as a film, so I did that over the last 2 days, and it was well worth it.
Hang on a second, guys. I've got to do some sort of restart of something here because I keep getting frozen. Okay, y'all didn't actually need to clap there. All I need to do is clap for me, because I'm already going to sync us up, way beforehand.
Okay, dude, keep fucking totally talking, works. Man, but this is some bullshit-ass fucking thing, because your stupid-ass freezes, because you don't know how to reboot your goddamn computer, because you let Shadow Fox.
Deja vu. Deja vu.
I let Shadow Fox touch my computer.
Yeah, you did, dude.
He was going to touch my butt, but then he wanted to touch my computer instead, so I let him run with it.
Can we do both?
You know?
I mean, I had to show the doctor my butt today, so...
Ah.
Do you give me a prostate exam?
No, I got a skin tag on my butt cheek, and I'm like, that's kind of weird.
I mean... you know.
Oh, dude, I named him Bob, and we joked about it. So, yeah, I'm Damok, and I'm fucking here, so shit. It's time to have some fun.
Dude, it's a new year, man.
Yeah, it is a new year, man. New year, same fucking me, because I'm not changing a goddamn thing. Except for maybe I can lose some goddamn weight.
Come to the gym with me. It'll totally not work. Anyway, so, what's everybody drinking? We all know how this rolls. We figure out what the hell everybody's drinking, and we go from there. So,
do we want to say it at the same time?
All right, 1, 2, 3. Pumpkin spice stuff with vodka in it. I lied about everything I said because I forgot what I was drinking at the last second. I flopped.
Whatever Cecil said, that's what we're drinking.
Yeah.
So cut out all of our audio and just add yours. We'll be good.
Yeah, I got something in it.
So, okay, I'm actually drinking apple cider with misunderstood whiskey in it, and it is fantastic. I may have poured the misunderstood whiskey a little bit heavy, but I'm okay with this.
Considering all I heard was something in it, my mind immediately went towards you're fucking with us, and you just came into a cup.
No, I completely screwed up and said something like apple juice with vodka in it or something. Because my brain fritz, I looked down and I'm like, what the hell am I drinking? I don't remember.
Pumpkin spice.
See,
I said pumpkin spice stuff.
Yeah,
pumpkin spice with vodka in it is like that.
That's what I said. That's what I said.
When I heard something in it, I thought about that damn toe that extends and dips into the fucking pool water.
You're welcome. You're fucking welcome for that gift.
The toe. Nice. Well, what are you drinking, Damok? Tell me. What you got?
I went out and, well, you know what? I didn't go out. I didn't have to do a fucking thing. My fiance bought me some fucking Viking ale horn glasses. I got the shot glass to the mead glass to the beer glass that has fucking handles on them. And then she bought me 2 bottles of Viking's blood. So I am drinking Viking's blood out of my animal horn fucking glass and enjoying the shit out of it.
Why didn't you just put the Viking's blood directly into the beer one? I mean, just have a handle and, you're going to do it anyways. Like, that's what you're getting into. Just,
You're right, and I would do it that way, but apparently the way that Vikings drank mead was in a specific animal's horn, and it's like yay big, and this is actual wood on the bottom. I have to be careful and treat the wood every time it's washed and everything, because, it's supposed to be more authentic across the board. One day I hope to go to Valhalla, but we'll see.
Well, until then, we'll just have to play Valhelm or whatever the hell that game was. Until
then, we'll just have to drink like the Vikings. Cheers, Damok.
You're drinking the same thing, right, Vintage?
Yes, I am. On a whim, I thought you were also joining us, Cecil, but Damok alone then convinced me in this case, and I picked up my first bottle of Viking's blood.
I was gonna go out and get something, but Shadow Fox stopped by, and then we started drinking, and then I watched The Matrix, and then I continued drinking, and then I never made it out, and my wife unfortunately passed out, so I couldn't be like, "Hey, honey, would you go get me a bottle of Viking's blood?"
Yeah, it's delicious. This is the first time I'm ever having it, and oh my, is it? It's an explosion of flavor in your mouth. It's not what it's from looking at it. I mean, when you go to Total Wine or wherever you get it, it is in the dessert wine section, and I was like, holy fuck, this is 19%. This is heavier than any mead I've ever had, because usually I'm right around like the 13, 14 mark, lighter, closer to almost like a light beer kind of mead. This is real mead. And it's real flavor. It's not just like, we added juniper berries this time. And it's basically just like a heavy ale with juniper berries. No, this is totally different. It's closer to almost like a cider, to be honest. Like, mead, to me, the consistency is closer to a cider. And with that being the case, you get a lot more richness and sweetness into a lot of the flavors that it brings in.
Oh, yeah, man. Dude, the mead, I like mead for the flavor of mead. I've had a bunch of them. And when I was out at Macedon last time, I grabbed a bunch of different meads. And I gotta say, there was a raspberry mead, there was an apple mead. And I gotta say, I like just straight mead, just straight honey wine. Way better than all of that other stuff.
I absolutely agree there, because I'm a huge fan of honey. We used to make... This is going to sound poor because I was poor, but it'd be honey and fucking butter sandwiches. You take a slice of butter and then you put honey over the top of them on the sandwiches, and they're so good. So I grew up loving honey, and then you get Viking's blood or Viking blood, it's just that rich, deep honey, full-bodied flavor. The only actual fucking downside is that each bottle is almost 2,000 calories, and it's really hard to have a single glass of it. You end up pouring several, and then you go, well, I've had 2 fucking days worth of meals.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but you know what? Worth it.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. It's just like one of those, tomorrow I'm have to get my ass on that elliptical.
Now, what we have to do, and I mean this in the most literal and dead sense, we have to find a friggin' crate of that stuff we had at medieval times. We have to.
So, it's not all medieval times. It's only the medieval times in New Jersey that has that specific brand. They have an import license on it, because I can't find it anywhere in the States to get it, and to import it into the US, wherever I have looked and looked and looked. I know, I spent $400 fucking buying bottles for all of us nonstop all night, to include myself, because I drank at least 3 bottles. But we bought bottle after bottle after bottle. That was the best mead. It was that deep honey taste, but it was lighter on the palate across the board, and
Super sweet. And it was so good because it had, like, I don't like wines in general. Like, there's some wines that I like, but I like sweeter wines. And Viking's Blood, while I like it, it's a little bit too, like, wine bitey, if that makes any sense.
Heavy,
you know,
dude.
It's
heavy.
That dry wine taste that you get out of it. It has that flavor that I'm like, ugh. But that stuff we had at Medieval Times, holy shit. It was the perfect level of sweetness, the perfect level of wine flavor, and so super smooth, like bottle after bottle out of that horn. That horn actually sits on my desk at work right next to a bottle of Dalmore too.
My horn is in the other room, but absolutely, dude, that thing is fucking great. I remember having to use the strap around my neck because I was so fucking drunk drinking all the damn mead. Do you know when we went to Medieval Times, by any chance? Like, month and year?
Yeah, no, I can tell you the month because it was Zyber's birthday.
I almost went to that. And I will use this as an opportunity. Yeah, I almost went to Zyber. He invited me up and I couldn't make it.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
I will use this as an opportunity to mention something that's going to be very shaming of me. You guys will shame the hell out of me for this. I have yet to go to Medieval Times since turning 21. So I have yet to experience mead at all at Medieval Times, let alone the creme de la creme you are referring to.
And that's how we got server muted. So now we can't talk ever again. Thank you, Vintage, so much for being on the show. I'm totally joking. I was fucking with you.
Fuck you, though, because I can tell you point blank, my window is not lighting up green as if I was talking, and I'm looking up, I'm like, Audacity's picking up my voice. Discord is not. What the fuck?
So what month is Zyber's birthday so that I can get the actual name of the mead? February. Okay, so we went February 2019, right?
It was towards the end of February it would have been.
Okay.
Well, anywho, I'm going to go deeper into what I'm drinking. I am drinking a very, standard apple cider. My wife picks them up at the store. I think she picked up at, Publix or Walmart or something. But misunderstood ginger spice whiskey along with it. It mixes so well. There's, two things that I always misunderstood with. That's apple cider and eggnog. And eggnog season is long gone now. But man, I could still get apple cider, and it mixes so well. The spices out of the apple cider and the ginger spice of the whiskey with that hit right at the end. Oh man, it hits so nice over the palate, and it's a lasting flavor. It's not like a bam, I'm there and I'm gone. You get that full cinnamon and allspice flavor out of the apple cider. And then that ginger kick is right there just to let you know that it's still there, making it happen one more time in the capital region. It's friggin' fantastic. All right. Well, while Damok looks up where that picture is and what mead that is, let's go into State of Games. State of Games is where we talk about what we've been playing for the past week, or how Blue Shark loves to say for me, we pontificate on video games in general of today. So I'm going to start this one off. It's actually been a little while. We haven't had a show since before Christmas. So we've had a lot of gaming going on. I have gotten a ton of gaming in, and I'm actually pulling up my Steam so I can actually look back at my recents so I can tell you exactly what I've been playing and I don't miss anything. I've been playing a bunch of Destiny 2 because there was the Dawning event that came out. And the Dawning event had a whole bunch of stuff that came along with it. It was pretty fun. There's also the Dares of Eternity, which I finally grinded my way out of, and I got my space rock. So now I fly around in a giant kidney stone in the sky. So that's
fun.
Fuck
you, Cecil. Fuck you.
I want to get a bunch of us together and have a whole bunch of different colored stones, and then we call ourselves the Thanos crew or something, because that'd be fucking funny as hell.
Temporarily make a new clan, that sort of thing.
No, not temporarily. Fucking full on, make it happen. We just fly around the rocks all day long. I've been playing a bunch of Destiny. I've also been playing Graveyard Keeper. Been throwing down a little bit of No Man's Sky because the new update came out for that. And to be perfectly honest, I've been playing a bunch of the Oculus with Beat Saber because I got an Oculus Quest 2 just before Christmas. And man, that thing is fun as hell. And now that I can connect it to my computer, I've been playing a whole bunch of VR games or games that have VR in it that I haven't had before. Like, I'm going to be kicking into Resident Evil, Biohazard, the Resident Evil 7. I'm going to wear my brown pants, or I just won't wear any pants at all. Thankfully, the chair is leather, so it'll hose off. There's a game called Robinson. Oh, what you got? What you got, Vintage?
Did you know they made Resident Evil 4 Remastered
Yes.
for Quest 2 exclusively?
Yes.
This is the sole reason I am now, screaming at myself that I have not gotten a Quest 2 yet. I have an original Quest. And up until literally this holiday season, every single game was available on it. And now, it's like a smack to the fucking face. The hardware is not outdated. The screen is 90% as good.
Well, dude,
the hardware is almost there. I just want to play Resident Evil 4.
When you go to get a Quest 2, let me know, because I'll send you my referral. And because I work for a specific company, the referral bonus actually goes up to $60 versus $30.
By the way, I saw that it was up to $60 for a holiday thing, I think it was October through the end of December anyway. So part of me wonders if maybe it doubled from there, if somebody actually got a Quest and you used your referral code.
I sent over a bunch of people, but mine is there at all times. It's pretty freaking sweet.
Yeah, that's great.
I dig the company I work for. It's pretty boss.
Yeah, we're all gonna work for you eventually. This is a known fact.
With me.
The 4 is only on weekends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been playing a bunch of Quest stuff. I played No Man's Sky in VR, which I love No Man's Sky. I've got to get used to it in VR. It's the movement around is a little bit jarring for me. Especially in vehicles, in land vehicles, in space, flying around. Fucking spot on. I love it. It's amazing. I enjoy it. I played Elite Dangerous in VR. Holy crap. Nipples hard. Nipples fucking hard.
Chafing.
Dude, I need Band-Aids or something to go over this, because it's Elite Dangerous in VR is exactly what I wanted. And the feeling of HOTAS and everything in there too. The only thing that I've got to do, I've got to get either a better keyboard layout or just make a custom keyboard with a bunch of switches on it so I can do what I want to in Elite Dangerous. Because now with the Oculus on, I can't see my keyboard. So when I want to there's a lot of stuff I can program on the HOTAS, but there's a lot of stuff that there's just not enough buttons. I mean, Elite Dangerous got a shit ton of stuff you can do in it. So I want to make a custom keyboard layout. Or what I think I'm going to do is take a mechanical keyboard, remove all of the keys except for the ones I'm going to use, and then make it that way. I might do it that way. What you got?
Have you considered, depending on what the button is you need to map, looking at some of these keyboards are now supporting the analog switches that have pressure sensitivity. It's not pressure sensitivity, but the distance you actually push on the keystroke actually affects the signal of what's being pushed out. So, you have your regular typing. I push the letter S. It just goes. But if I, halfway push the letter S, it's pressure sensitive in a way because it breaks my understanding is the way they're doing the switches, it breaks the laser, partially. And that sends a totally different signal to say, hey, he's not actually pushing down the letter S as far as it goes.
I haven't looked into that. I've more looked into actually just building a custom keyboard. Just using switches that I have and then using a keyboard interface and then just soldering it and then literally having a keyboard interface underneath it, a shell on top, and then the keys that I want there, because it's not really that hard. The keyboard, the Red Dragon keyboards I get are literally just insert post there. It could be so easy for me to just, solder cables in and make a shell on top and have a switch there that I just hit. But what else have I been playing? I've been playing a ton of shit. I think I said Graveyard Keeper. I jumped into Death Stranding, and I got to admit, it's a walking simulator, but I really like it. It unfolds a story exactly how I expect a Hideo Kojima game to unfold a story. It's confusing as hell. It's got a lot of depth to it. I played it for probably 20 or 30 minutes, and I could already tell that the world behind it, like, was really well thought out before this was even, like, written. Because there's just a lot going on, and it's confusing as fuck, which is the main reason why I love Hideo Kojima games, because I'm always confused as hell, and then I get a big old aha moment at the end. It just fucks with my brain.
That's why I love the Metal Gear Solid franchise.
Yeah, dude.
When he released Phantom Pain, the short, like, filler before you got to Metal Gear Solid 5. Sorry, Phantom Pain was 5. Ground Zeroes.
Yes.
Yep. Just that was enough to fuck with your head enough to be like, what in the fuck is happening next?
See, now,
like, it was the right mind fuck for the right time to fill us all over to get to Phantom Pain.
So Ground Zeroes and Phantom Pains is the only Metal Gear Solid that I have not completed, and I will put the air quotes on completed. And I can already, like, playing that game, I can feel it. 2 reasons why. 1, they took David Hayter out of voicing Snake. David Hayter, in my mind, is and always will be Snake. Like, no other person. Kiefer Sutherland, not Snake. Not any form of Snake. Not going to ever be any form of Snake. So, in my mind, David Hayter is Snake. It's like somebody taking another person to voice Batman. If you do not have Kevin Conroy voicing Batman, it's not Batman. What you got?
I will say, though, Kiefer Sutherland is my solid Snake. And part of the reason why is I'm very much... It's obvious, I'm younger than you guys. So that's been more recent for me in a lot of my experiences.
But he's not Solid Snake. He's not even Solid Snake in that game.
Fair enough. But I also know him, like, semi-personally. He's a very good friend of one of my dad's friends, and I've hung out with him a handful of times. He's a really cool fucking dude.
I'm not 100% not disputing that.
It breaks me down, and it's like, that's Solid Snake to me now, which is it's a mind fuck thing.
So I am 100% not saying that Kiefer Sutherland is not a good guy. I'm not even remotely saying that. I am saying that he is not Snake. He is definitely not Solid Snake, because Solid Snake is David Hayter. And Snake in that game is not even supposed to be Solid Snake. It's supposed to be Big Boss. And spoiler alert, if anybody's watching, it's actually not even Big Boss. Like, it doesn't even turn out to be Big Boss.
Yeah, that's what part of the reason I love the Hideo Kojima Metal Gear Solid series is because you don't even know what the fuck is going on at any time. The second you think you know, you don't. And then the second you realize, everything is flipped on its head. And then you have no fucking clue, and you can just assume that left or right or whatever, and it's always wrong. I don't think I've ever accurately predicted a Metal Gear Solid next step. And next step is a fair way to put it, because it's like, oh, I see what the next mission's gonna be. Obviously, it makes sense. But you can never figure out that next step in the storyline. It's not fucking possible, because Hideo Kojima must be on, like, God fucking knows what to create something like that.
No, he's a master storyteller, in my opinion. And that's okay if you don't share my opinion. I'm fine with that. I just really enjoy his stories. Like, I'm a fanboy. I'm a freaking fanboy. Just as much as the opposite of I'm not a fanboy of Uwe Boll, I am a fanboy of Hideo Kojima.
Is this the opportunity where we give a quick fuck you to Konami for not letting Hideo Kojima continue?
For not doing Silent Hill? Yeah, we can totally do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there should be a Silent Hill.
Another Metal Gear Solid in him. He literally was open about that.
Well,
and
so
not
that's
the survival bullshit.
No,
Even
so
though
there's
it was
the thing.
fun, it was not Metal Gear Solid.
Hideo Kojima was done with Metal Gear Solid after Metal Gear 4. Like, he didn't even want to do Metal Gear 4, but his fans were screaming and yelling, and he did that game for closure. Because if you play that game, like, there is a gaggle of closure in that game. And everybody complained about how much, oh man, that, like, there was like 5 minutes of gameplay and then 30 minutes of FMV. You know, it's like, yeah, because it was a fan service game. Well, anyways, like, we're totally getting way off topic. So, state of games. What's your state of games there, Vintage? Like, well, I'll talk all night about Hideo, so.
Destiny 2, finally getting my grind on. Hit 1320 today, super fucking hype. Went to Xur, got the god roll for the grenade launcher he had. I am just like uncomfortable with the amount of time I've spent in it because I've been home all week. Damok?
Nice. He's cackling laughing right now. I don't know what's going on.
6 bottles of Bunrati mead is on its way to my house.
Fuck you.
Suck my cock.
From
Fuck
Total
you.
Wine. It is. I found it. It was on Total Wine. It ships to my house. It was in fucking stock. 6 bottles.
Oh, we're going to Damok's house. It's happening. It is happening. I'm coming up there. I'm going to bring my quest. We're going to do a Beat Saber friggin' fight. It's going to happen.
Tomorrow, and my Quest 1 does support Beat Saber, and...
not tomorrow. It's not going to be here tomorrow.
Yeah, we gotta wait. We gotta wait.
1 to
Sunday!
3 day ground
We're
shipping.
going over Sunday!
There's Vintage sitting outside of his house on a friggin' lawn chair. I don't care if there's fucking snow out here. I'm waiting for some fucking mead.
No. I'm gonna be out there, snow or not, fucking just swinging around in Beat Saber, whatever the hell Oculus game I want to play at that point. He's gonna... Damok, just invite me in when the meat arrives.
He'll be sitting there swinging around in Beat Saber, and I'll be sitting there playing Resident Evil 4, being like, "Oh, poor guy."
Oh, suck my dick. Walking Dead is still on the original Quest, and that is fun as fuck. If you've not played that yet.
What's your state of games there, Damok?
Oh shit, dude. Let's see. I started playing World Box God Simulator because I was just like, hey, let's have a little bit of fun with that. And yeah, it's it's honestly just a dumb game, but it was kind of fun to watch. But I like watching a lot of things. That's why I like clicker games so fucking much. I just like to watch numbers and things happen. Then I was just trolling around and I found a game called Mini Motorways. And I got really absorbed into that for like 3 days. I played it nonstop and it was a really, really fun game where there's a subway game that's just like it, where you have to connect like the UK subway tracks, and like it just randomly spawns houses and randomly spawns the store that they have to go to or the building they have to go to, whatever the fuck it is, and then you have to build out entire cities and lap things over, but you're limited on your road choices. If you do stop signs, if you do stop signs, if you do stop lights, if you do roundabouts, if you do highways, you have to wait for like the Sunday to kick over and it goes to the week, and it's pretty goddamn fun. Honestly, take a look at it. It wasn't very expensive, and I bought it before it was even on sale. It was just a lot of fun.
Sounds pretty boss.
And you can go endless with it, which I think is cool. Any game that you can effectively take a level endless until you just lose is
Have you actually played
awesome.
it? Because I didn't see an endless option.
So, depends on the level, I think, if I'm not mistaken. There's also the weekly challenges. I've not personally played it. I've watched a lot of videos on it. It's what? You're connecting the same color houses to the supermarkets that then become like theaters, so on and so forth.
Yeah,
that
pretty much.
effectively can go endless if you're good enough at the game. That's part of the thing.
Yeah, to a certain extent, I think it can get to that point where you can do it, but it's definitely based on a point-based system. Like the first game that I played, I got 1,000 points, and I was like, "Oh, sweet!" And I thought that was pretty good. And then it showed me the leaderboard, and I'm like, "Oh, fuck me, dude! I'm not even close." But
Bottom 1%. Yep,
bottom
exactly.
5. But okay, so then I just trolled along YouTube for a little bit, looking to buy something for the Steam sale, and I wasn't sure. I picked up Potion Craft, and it's a cheap little game that was a lot of fun. You mix potions, but when you mix the herbs, you're trying to reach certain potions on a map, and it's fun. It really is. I wasn't a huge fan of the herbs that they used to get to certain ways because I found most of them to be honestly fucking useless. And then they cost so much to make some of the potions, and then some of the people are kind of shady, and there's a lot of little hidden things. It's still in early access. I would wait on it personally to get a little bit more to it, but it was interesting. And then I finally, on the last day of the Steam sale, I was like, fuck, man, I've only bought one game on this whole winter sale. I gotta buy something and play it. I got Honey, I Joined a Cult. And
I saw you playing that.
Yeah, and I love it, dude. Like, it's ultra
RimWorld.
micromanaging.
It is RimWorld. Don't you
Kind
fucking
of.
tell me
Kind
anything
of.
else. I asked you, Damok, is this basically another version of RimWorld? And you tried to say no, but then you inevitably said yes.
It's like it's more RimWorld meets Prison Architect, where Prison Architect is more focused on the building. Like, the buildings are instant, right? I'm not waiting for my pawns to go out and build shit. I'm not waiting for their fucking starvation shit and all of that. I'm not harvesting all this stuff. I can just pop a vending machine in, and they're good to go for food-wise. They don't like it all that much, but, you know... but it's very more... The art style is more Prison Architect, and the just fun, easy, the buildings generate instantly is very Prison Architect, but it's still very a micromanaging game of running a cult. So it does have that RimWorld aspect where you do have to manage the players or you know, the characters that you're doing. So hey, honestly, I saw it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I've been playing the shit out of it. So yeah, those are my 3 big games that I've been playing over the winter break.
Nice. I gotta check out that Honey, I Joined a Cult, or is that the name of it? Honey, I Joined a Cult?
Yeah, it's like Honey, I Joined a Cult. And
yeah,
it's
I gotta check
great.
that out because that did look pretty fun.
Yeah,
well,
if you like RimWorld / Prison Architect, it is 100% up your alley.
Well, now to get into the meat of this episode, like, not to say that we haven't already gotten there, it's like 40 minutes in, and we're just getting into our topic. But we are going to talk about The Matrix. And we're going to probably spend a lot more time on the actual Matrix new movie, Matrix Resurrection. But we're going to touch into all of them. So, well, what do you got, Vintage, since you're
I would like to start and just point out a very integral fact that I would like you guys to debate if you disagree. Similar to how people will refer to Die Hard as a Christmas film, the Matrix trilogy is a romance novel.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a love story.
Perfect.
But anyway, so
yeah, just wanted to make sure that was out there.
All right, well, for those of you who haven't seen The Matrix, you might live under a rock, you might be, I don't know, Mormon, you might be Blue Shark, I don't know. But for those of you who haven't seen The Matrix is a movie that started off from the Wachowski brothers, and then inevitably ended up with the Wachowski sisters. Long story there. Actually, not really. They shifted. They are now women. So, works out. But what happens is you have a 1990s era city and a just...
Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago.
It is based on Chicago.
And they're basically...
I went a little too far into this.
And you've got the would-be the stereotypical hacker who goes by the alias of Neo. And he's searching for what the hell this thing is called the Matrix. And it's you end up finding out that it's a whole dystopia world with machines controlling humans and using them as batteries, and the humans trying to break the machines out. There's a whole bunch of different concepts of what they're trying to say, but the underlying theme is control. You know, you are being controlled by the machine. So The Matrix was really cool because it started off with you not knowing what the hell was going on. You know, you start off with Mr. Anderson and he's being chased down by the agents. And some really funky stuff happens. Like, you know, Agent Smith there who's played by Hugo, what the hell's his name? Hugo something or other. I'm getting flat. Vintage is looking it up. He's going to come in here and tell me in a second. But fantastic actor. He really nails it, and he's got that very monotone, very creepy voice that he just works. You know, Mr. Anderson. You know, he's just
Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving, thank you very much. Knew you were going to come through there. Keanu Reeves plays Neo, and Neo is, quote-unquote, the one. And
like, legitimately, at this point in fucking time, if you haven't seen or heard of The Matrix, I mean, I don't know what you need to explain. You're going to pace out the first movie, and we're not even going to get to talk about fucking the rest of it.
Well, no.
Like, legitimately, it's his first movie. Who hasn't seen it?
I'm just going with the first movie was badass and awesome and introduced a lot of great characters and a lot of great concepts. And I think, like, personally, I think it nailed it so well because it was so much of the unknown. Like, when you went into it, you didn't realize that it was a dystopia world where there was a bunch of machines controlling people. And that, I think, is what made it really cool. Then, of course, with the character development of Neo coming into himself and figuring out, and, you know, like Morpheus is sitting there believing, you know, he's the one. And Trinity slowly creeping up to believe he's the one. And Neo the whole time, you know, like, do I believe I'm the one? And he's teeter-tottering back and forth. All the moving parts in the movie really just work very well together. What do you got, man?
I just wanted to say that the fast forward of the Matrix saga is effectively you've got humans, the majority of humanity completely oblivious to the fact they're living in a simulation controlled by machines, and the fight for survival by those that then realized the majority of humanity is being controlled by a machine in a simulation. And it's the inevitable struggle of fate versus free choice, and how much of a role every decision actually does play in how things go. So it's a classic existential crisis series, which I love.
So the first movie was fantastic. And in the first movie, basically Neo turns out to be like the only superhuman or super being in the whole place. Then you get the second movie, and they bring in the exiles. And they start trying to explain some shit that really didn't need explaining. Like, hey, we've got these things that, remember werewolves? Well, they were real. We tried this and it didn't work, but we're still here because this dude who just talks French just wanted us to be here. Like, the second and third movie, I understand what they had to do. You know, it's really hard to figure out where they're going from there. But there was just a whole lot of fluff in there. Like, in the end of the third movie, I get they had to turn Neo into the Jesus character. He had to sacrifice himself for basically everybody else to live. I get that. But I don't get that.
I will say, the common criticism of the second and third movies, because I've watched them most recently of all of us, and I did some research on this. The common criticism is they focus way too much on convoluted or extreme understanding points of interest. And what I mean by that is they purposely make it difficult for you to try and guess what's going to happen next unless you look out of the box effectively. And then it's hyper-focused on then it's hyper-focused on a specific point where it's like, oh, well, I could have seen that a mile away if I was thinking in this perspective kind of thing. And that's really my understanding of these films.
No,
okay,
that's not the problem with the second and third movies. The problem with the second and the third movies was Zion itself. There was too much that
Politics.
was a convoluted story. No, the politics were fine. You can get into the politics of Zion because even the new Matrix movie continued the politics of Zion. That part wasn't the problem. All of Zion was 90% irrelevant. Neo being the Jesus character and having to sacrifice himself, absolutely. That made sense from the first movie when you're like, oh shit, he's the one, and then they progressed it. If you actually take and I know it takes a little bit of time to do it, but forget about 2 and 3 as actual movies and watch The Matrix 2 and 3 as The Matrix de-Zionized, and they took out all of the irrelevant fucking plot points that were like, we're going to spend 45 minutes in all of this talking about literally nothing. There was zero character development. There was zero focus on any other characters because they were all forgettable and they all died during the attack on fucking Zion, but no one cared about them across the damn board. So if you watch the first Matrix, then you watch Matrix Designized, and then you watch the new Matrix, you're gonna have a good time. But no one watches Matrix 2 and 3 because everything was just mostly irrelevant.
I will point out one of the greatest moments that happened in 2 and 3 occurred in Zion. If you remember, Link returning home for the first time he loves his wife, but his wife hates what he does. He opens the door. Where's my pussy? And realizes his niece and nephew are fucking playing right by the table. And he's like, oh shit. Like, little bits like that were nice and worthwhile. But when I say politics got in the way a little bit, I think it suffers from the same thing that, like, the Star Wars prequels do. Where they focus too much on the counselor doing this, the commander choosing to do this, and it's the back and forth struggle. When in reality, what everyone is really focused on and interested in is what the fuck is Neo doing, and what is Neo doing to change and affect the course of, effectively, Zion's history, or future in that respect.
Matrix and Star Wars, that's a total fucking different argument.
No, I'm specifically referring to the political involvement. I was not the biggest fan of it because you seem to have cutthroat commander, very standard, very stereotypical character. No, we can't spare anyone. We can't do this. We can't do that. Everyone has to be here. And then you have the one politician that's like, go do what you want, Neo. You're going to save us all, Neo. I believe in the prophecy, Neo. And it's like, I feel like that was way too much. To me, I drew a very strong conclusion to the Star Wars prequels, where a lot of what people hate is like, oh, it's the Senate. The Senate's arguing back and forth between the people actually in power and the Jedi Council. If you want to look at it as the Council of Elders of Zion, or not elders, excuse me, the Council of Zion, and then you want to look at the military that obviously includes the ship, the Nebuchadnezzar, which Morpheus and Neo and Trinity and Link are on. That's that internal struggle they were trying to build, and I don't personally believe that it adds a ton to the development of the story. Everybody was coming to watch Matrix 2 and 3 because they were so hooked on the idea that this one human had this ability within this simulated space, and then I think they did a great job at the end of Matrix 2, where they kind of were like, whoa, Neo can take that outside of the Matrix, this is unbelievable. But then they don't really build on the idea of that. They try and explain it, but I think it's kind of overclouded and shadowed by the politics dynamic that they're trying to show. That, oh, here's the big city, which has a lot of religious undertones, in my opinion, versus the military and their decision to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. No.
See, so we can disagree on the convolutedness of this, but at the end of the day, I agree with you, Damok. If you take Zion out of the equation, and you hyper-focus on Neo and his adventures in the Matrix, and what he is doing 100%, you've got yourself a great hour-and-a-half action film that's more closely resembling the 2+ hour film of the original Matrix.
Well, let's look at that for a quick second there. So, The Matrix 1, why it was so successful is it was action porn. Like, everything that happened in it, like 100%, all the gunplay, all the martial arts, not in no way, shape, or form is realistic. Like, you watch it and there's nothing about it that you're like, oh yeah, I can adapt that to real life. No, you cannot. It is just action porn. And that's like at the root of the Matrix. That's what The Matrix is. It's a great action flick. Now, the undertones it had around it, which were this dystopia world and people being controlled, kind of gave that, oh, this is why we're doing it. Now, my big gripe with The Matrix 2 and Matrix 3 is a lot of the political undertones that they had in it. A lot of the religious undertones that they had in it. They really started to get severely convoluted with what they were trying to do. You know, Neo is the one, and he proves himself over and over by being the one. It's not like everybody at Zion is going, oh, yeah, this guy's supposed to be the one. I heard about it. I've never seen anything. Like, they record all that shit. They replay that shit. So it's not like he's going in there and just doing nothing and people are just like, oh, we got to take this guy on faith. No, he's actually proving it over and over and over again. But throughout the series, like, at the end of the first Matrix, Neo is, well, I mean, quote unquote, he's a god. In the Matrix, he can't be killed. He can fucking fly. He can stop bullets. I mean, he's basically a god. So, I mean, that's where you leave it in the first Matrix. And then over the next two movies, you prove he's not. So it's kind of like you gave a big old, let me throw this into reverse. Because, like, take it where he's fighting the, what the hell's, Merv. Merv and his exiles. The exiles that were vampires and werewolves and all that bullshit. Like, he literally there, I think he even says it. See, he's nothing, he bleeds. He's nothing but a man. A man can be killed or some shit like that. You know, it's like they spend the next two movies proving he's not a god. And that's the thing that bugged me about the original trilogy, is that they take the first movie and build him up just to spend the next two movies to just tear him down.
And I will say, I 100% agree with you. I think part of the problem here, though, is it's a perspective thing. The first watch, when I was younger and I was watching through this, I'm like, whoa, Neo's a total god, even through 2 and 3. But I think the understanding here is it's more of a leveling him out to be just an above average human being. And that's part of the bizarreness, in my opinion, of the prophecy for Neo. Is, as we learn in 3, he's not the first, as they refer to, anomaly in the system. However, what kind of separates him is his love connection to Trinity that effectively adds an additional dynamic and element to his ability, because now he's not fueled by saving humanity. He's also now fueled by effectively love, which is what I mentioned earlier. Well, it's a love romance thing.
But the thing is, that's where we get into the Matrix 4 Resurrection. All right, now, I want to spend a little time on this movie because I've watched it twice. I watched it once 100% sober. I started watching it a second time 100% sober. I got about 40 minutes in and realized that I need to be incredibly inebriated to finish out this movie.
Agreed.
I watched it both times sober. I will point that out.
That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. I'm not downplaying anybody who watches it sober or whatnot. I'm just saying that the second time I tried to get through it and I could not without drinking. Now,
I will say though, the first time I watched it, I was hyper focused the entire time. The second time I watched it, I was like 70% focused on it. Kind of like when you rewatch a film, you're like, yeah, this was a pretty good movie, I'll watch it again kind of thing. But then you're not like hyper focused on it. I was, for me, the first like 30 minutes, because I was like, I will really want to see the things I missed. And then like after that point, there wasn't really anything that jumped out to me as like interesting or unique that like separated this film from everything else.
I was hyper-focused both times. The first time, okay, so I always try to go into movies, and just like you, Vintage, and I think just like really most people, I always try to go into movies with little to no expectations, or as low as I possibly can get. Because you know what? You see advertisements, you get hyped up a little bit no matter what. You know, oh, new Matrix movie. Even if you're trying to suppress it, there's that little bit of hype that's going to be building up inside of you for something. Like you're hoping to see something. So, can I say that I went in with absolutely no expectations? No, I can't say that. New Matrix movie, I was going in hoping for at the very least, a continuation of the story, which I can happily say I got. Not exactly happy with the way it went, but we all try to go in with no expectations, or as little expectations, I think, as possible.
I will clarify. I told this to the group earlier, just through chats. I try my best to separate expectations and excitedness, if that makes sense. I came into Matrix 4 extremely excited, super hyped to see this movie. But then the second I hit play, expectation was still maintained at 0. And I'm a little weird in the way where with that 0 level of expectation, I end up enjoying a lot more movies. And I actually was able to communicate today for the first time as I was kind of like breaking through my mental process on how I view films, that internally, if I find a movie is enjoyable to watch, then it must be good. And that's like it's an A to B step I take.
Understood.
If I don't enjoy a film, then it must be bad. Again, an A to B step. And I struggle with saying that effectively, A is when I start the film, C should be when I end the film, and B should be a critical analysis of, even if I thought the film was good, it could have been a bad movie. And I struggle in that area.
Understood.
I will say, first watch through, and I made this clear, I could not figure out it's maybe one of a dozen films I've ever watched, Matrix Resurrections was either an 8 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10 for me.
Huh.
I could not figure out what the hell I was thinking. And then on my second rewatch, and I'll tell you guys this now, I settled on 7 out of 10. And we can get into the specifics of why later, but I want to put that out there while I kind of have to.
Well, I'm just going to make an argument that if you're excited about a movie, it's impossible for you to have 0 expectations. I will make that argument. I
semi-agree. I understand where you're coming from on that, but it's almost like my brain turns off when I start the film, and it's like blank slate. Anything I saw prior was really just to get me to start the movie, and then blank slate.
That's fine, but if you're excited, anything you're excited about, and it's psychology. Anything you're excited about, you instantly have expectations of. You get excited about sex. You're expecting you're going to orgasm. If you don't climax, then guess what? That sucked. Your expectations were not met. So it's just it's an A to B thing. I mean, I can definitely relate and understand, because anytime I go into a movie, like the new Ghostbusters movie, I went in.
No. Don't you fucking talk about that.
I haven't seen it. Another episode, I haven't seen it yet.
I don't even talk about it.
All I'm going to say
I'll go off track, man.
All I'm going to say is that I went into that movie with 0 expectations and about as little hype as I possibly could.
I went in with full fucking hype, and it blew my fucking socks off.
But I'm just going to say that because it was a Ghostbusters movie, and I have been waiting for a good Ghostbusters movie for so long, that even though I was trying desperately hard to not go in with a level of excitement and hype and expectations, I went in with extremely high expectations. And that was me desperately trying not to. And that's the same way that this Matrix movie went into. I really loved the first Matrix movie. And I tried to stay away from the reviews, but all the reviews that I read was saying that it relied a lot on nostalgia. Like there was a lot of nostalgic moments in it. And
that's what I was saying.
For me,
was struggling that gap.
Well, that for me is not a bad thing, because I for one, I liked The Force Awakens. So when The Force Awakens came out, I really enjoyed that movie, and I felt it was a good movie. And for a majority, the critics agreed that it was a good movie. But it relied a lot on nostalgia. There was a lot of tropes in it that was basically replaying A New Hope over again. And it's not a bad thing. Now, with the Matrix Resurrection, to be perfectly honest, I was kind of expecting a retelling of the original Matrix. And the movie, let's kick into this. The movie starts off with almost a play for play of the original opening to the Matrix. Vintage, you might want to change your screen since there's a child staring at the screen now. But it opens up like literally, like play for play. It's opening up with almost an identical scene from the Matrix 1, the Trinity scene, where she's sitting there, the cops show up, and they're literally having, the Agent Smith, but all of the characters seem to be different. It's played out the exact same way, but all of the characters are different. Like, for instance, Agent Smith, instead of being Hugo, is played by a black gentleman. And you're like, okay, well, what's going on here? Now, at this point in time, I'm still like, all right, I'm tracking. Let's see where this goes. And they literally are doing a play for play of the original. Now, whether they're trying to grab a hold of nostalgia at that point in time, or whether they're just trying to, to set the mood, because even though it's played out the exact same scene, everything about it is so much different.
Okay, so you have watched the first Matrix movie, right?
Yeah.
So then you realize that the scene that they are playing out there is the scene that always plays out entirely. That is when they understand that Neo is the one that they need to rescue and all of that. So
it's the beginning.
As far as right, but as what you were saying, were they doing it for nostalgia factor, or were they doing it as part of the storyline? Honestly, it's part of the storyline, but it does have an undertone of the nostalgia, but it is a big part of the storyline of that's how they always figure out Neo exists.
I think it was an extremely good way of doing it.
Yeah, but what my point is, though, is that they started off this movie with an exact replica of the first movie, and they didn't have to. They could have went it a completely different route and still given the same impact. So to me, it starts off with almost, it feels like they're cheapening it. Now, I'm going to give a grain of salt. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt, because this scene, even though it's a replica of the original Matrix opening, it also has a completely different feel to it, whether it be the cinematography, the angles, everything else. So I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and say they're just trying to lay the scene and show you how this is different from the first Matrix, but it's still the same. Like, I'm giving it that benefit of the doubt.
And I will say, I think they did a really good job, because given the fact that I literally, 2 hours after watching Resurrections for the first time, booted up the first Matrix movie. So immediately I made that initial scene connection, maybe a little bit clearer than you guys did in terms of the exact events that occurred.
Yeah, why don't you just piss on us a little bit more? Because you're really
I
didn't say,
no. That's not what I'm trying to get at.
I'm going to knock you down off your high horse here for a second here, because you keep saying you've done this already. Like, you've done this more. Okay, so you gotta just humble yourself just a little bit, because you gotta keep in mind that
all I'm saying is I'm trying to preface that I'm about to speak in some specifics with those two scenes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, hold on a second. Because before I watched the new fucking Matrix, I watched the first Matrix. Literally watched the first Matrix.
And then I didn't know.
Yeah, so that's why you gotta humble yourself before you assume you know anything better than anybody else.
So I was not trying to portray that I knew more than you guys. I was just trying to say that right after I did watch the first one again, because I wanted to get that comparison there. Because I knew it was the first one. But you did
in the wrong order, bud.
Apologies.
You gotta do it like I do it.
Fair enough.
I watched the first Matrix, then I watched Matrix 4.
So, the two big things that I noticed were different in that scene. If we ignore the fact that Trinity is in definitely different clothing and is being portrayed by a different actor.
So ignoring that.
Forth.
Actress.
Yes, actress, excuse me. Actor is a very general term, if we're gonna be blunt. But in the first Matrix film, the moment that Trinity faces the cops and makes an action, First of all, the cops are totally different. They look like street uniform officers showing up. And in Resurrection, they're SWAT cops.
That's the point.
Yes, and I'm about to get that. I'm about to get there. And
I think that meat's kicking your ass, man.
A little bit, let's be honest. It's fucking 19% of glass and I've had 3. But, let me get this point out real quick. With those subtle variations, and the fact that it's enough of a callback for nostalgia purposes to be like, oh, cool, this is going to be kind of similar to the first movie. It's a great way to hook the audience, but if we're talking from a story perspective, and then all of a sudden you see Bugs watching in on this, going, this is not right. That immediately makes your brain click and go, that's right, this is the same occurrence, but the exact events are definitely different. And I think that's a great way to actually start a film, considering we're 19 years later in real life? 18 years from release date. 99 to 2021. Jesus Christ, 22 years later from that. They expected that the average person going into that film was going to say, oh yeah, I don't need to watch the originals again. I just want to watch this one. That's the average person, if you were to think about it. So
I disagree with that entirely, but okay.
Yeah,
for us who are pretty big fans. For us who are big fans.
Yeah, but I think
I
think even people going into this are going to look at it and say, I mean, there's a new Matrix movie coming out. Even if, let's say, just somebody goes in completely blind and goes, what the hell is the Matrix? As soon as they Google it, and everybody Googles everything now, they're going to see that there's 3 other movies, and they're going to watch one of them. I mean, they're at least going to watch the first one.
Fair enough. And I'll tell this from the perspective of my father, who you guys have both met. He watched it. He did not watch the other 3 prior to... He's watched the other 3, but not, like, right up to it, because he was like, cool, new Matrix movie. He was like, oh, that's a really cool callback. It kind of, like, got me back into the groove. Like, part of my brain was like, this is awesome. The other part of my brain's like, this is not accurate, though. And then they're quick to pull the camera back to Bugs, making the same comment. I feel like the Matrix, in general, though, the new Matrix film did a great job of breaking some of the fourth wall in the same way that Neo's interaction with the architect in Matrix 3 Revolutions broke the fourth wall just a little bit. And it's kind of teetering on that edge where they're kind of like...
Hold on a second. That wasn't a fourth wall break.
Fine, that's what I mean more by, like, maybe a fracture. Kind of like, it was like an awakening where they're kind of talking to the audience, telling them, like, hey, we've been doing this for a while kind of thing. If you get... pseudo wall break.
The best fourth wall break in the Matrix series is in the game Path of Neo, where at the very end, right before the final fight, literally the directors come out and say, hey, you know what? We were trying to figure out a way to make this whole final fight thing happen with Smith and Neo, but it's really hard to make the Jesus character out of Neo when, you know, all this other stuff happens. So we're just going to have you fight a giant Smith robot instead, because that seems way cooler for a video game. Like, that was the best fourth wall break in all of the Matrix.
Fair enough. Let's all agree, though, that the average person who's a fan of the Matrix didn't necessarily play the games.
True. I can respect that.
Yes.
The games weren't very good. I played Enter the Matrix.
So it was an entertaining game, and that's something I want to get into later with 2, 3, and the new film.
We are getting way the fuck off here.
Yeah,
so
we're getting way in the weeds here.
Let's reel this shit fucking back, because all we talked about is the beginning of the goddamn movie.
We haven't got that far.
One big question. Let me ask a big question for you guys to answer. Let me ask a question for you. It's not like a specific thing. Stop. Okay, I actually was thinking about this earlier. If you separate the trilogy from the new film real quick into 2 separate entities.
Impossible.
I was thinking about, if you were then to say, hey, there's 3 categories you can then rate this film in. You can rate it from enjoyment level. You can rate it for its story. And then you can rate it for its overall quality.
Yeah. Let's get to the end. Yeah. You're jumping the gun here. I do.
A little bit.
Vintage. I 100% appreciate that you did so much research and you have so much to say. but there's 2 other people here, and we got to get through a lot of content.
Okay, I don't talk all that much on this show.
I understand. I get it. But let's break this down into topics, and let's work our way through here. All right?
Yes.
So, the opening scene, it kicks into what seems to be like, oh, this seems very familiar, but it doesn't. Now, we can kind of go into a whole bunch of different kind of concepts of it, but that's like whether it's nostalgia or whether it's whether they're trying to set the tone, I'm not 100% sure, but there's definitely a nostalgia factor. I think we can all agree on that, right? There's definitely a nostalgia factor to that opening scene. And can we actually let's back that up there, because you mentioned something. The person's name is Bugs. Bugs, as in Bugs Bunny, as in a fucking rabbit. Now, flash forward to where Bugs is finally trying to convince Neo when they're on the fucking rooftop, and there's a big glowing door. Let's take the big glowing door out of the picture, okay?
Yes.
No. But here's one of my biggest complaints about this movie is that they had such a great opportunity to let subtlety have its effect.
Overemphasis.
And instead of letting subtlety happen, they just said, you know what? We're just going to slap you in the face and mushroom stamp you with this. Now, I'm going to let's take that rooftop scene for a quick second. Her name is Bugs. Okay? Bugs Bunny. Let the audience lead that. Hey, it's the rabbit. Follow the rabbit. But instead of letting that happen, what did they do?
Tattoo.
She pulled up and had the exact same tattoo that was in the first Matrix film.
Hold on. May I step us back a handful of scenes?
Okay.
Neo is in the boardroom for the game development company that made the Matrix, and they're talking and they're spewing out stuff like follow the rabbit, bullet time, all these things. It's all callbacks, and it's creating that mental feedback loop for Neo prior to that moment. But then they're like, here it is, in your face.
Hold that thought, because that's a completely separate conversation that I want to jump into as well, okay? But let's focus on, let's just for a moment, and this is the reasons why I feel the film was not good. From a holistic point of view, and we'll get to this at the end. From a holistic point of view, I got a different opinion. But from the little things, like for instance, the directors don't allow, they set up all these great opportunities for subtlety to work. Like, her name is Bugs. Bugs is trying to get Neo to follow her. And they're doing that as a throwback to Follow the Rabbit from the first film. Okay?
But they already did that with the, before we get to anything crazy, the Alice in Wonderland bookkeeper.
Yes.
Yes.
With the Alice in Wonderland book on the table. And they made several. What was that? I think Bjorn or Bjork. They had a song from Bjork, which I think that song has a tie back to Alice in Wonderland as well.
Dude, they even had that whole, and the White Knight is talking backwards, and the Queen is off with her head, and you're like, okay. So,
I mean, they had such great opportunity for subtlety in this movie to really take hold.
The song alone and the book, they could have fucking left it alone. But you know what? You're right. They did not do subtle. No, because I don't think they can fucking do subtle.
But that's the thing, though, is that they started so well, and I got so excited with how subtlety they were working with. And then all of a sudden they're just like, you know what? Subtlety isn't working, so we're just going to slap you in the face with this. They never let the conclusion happen. For instance, Neo seeing the Alice in Wonderland book, seeing her, getting her referred to as Bugs, and never just he would have made getting to that conclusion himself.
He was making the connections.
That's what I'm saying. He was.
We didn't see him make the connections. We didn't really see him. He was oh, that's interesting, as opposed to a mental moment, which would have been a better way, in my opinion, of portraying it. If he sees Alice in Wonderland, and then all of a sudden on the screen, follow the White Rabbit. A flashback in his mind to seeing that on his computer terminal. Something like that would have been in your face, but just subtle enough where it didn't. And this comes back to one of my major criticisms that I've not mentioned yet of this film is they failed to take into account that, like, actually, the opposite. They overexpressed, given the criticisms of the previous two films, that they were working on nuances and little things here and there, and it's just like, no, people who are going to watch Matrix Resurrections are primarily fans of either the full trilogy or just the first movie.
That's what I'm trying to get to.
They didn't make many callbacks to the second and third film.
Yep.
They made almost exclusively callbacks to the first film, which 99%, in my opinion, of the audience that would have watched this movie would have been able to figure out.
And that's my
without
point.
having it slap you in the fucking face.
Take a breath. And that was my point, is that the film had set up so many great opportunities for subtlety to let the audience jump to that conclusion and have that aha moment. You know, like, for instance, her name being Bugs. Most people, like, didn't catch that right away because they're like, Bugs.
I did not.
Yeah, see, you didn't even catch it. And it's one of those things
No, when they said bugs, I was thinking, oh, bugs, like are those
like computer
the bugs in the Matrix?
Like viruses,
I was thinking glitches and stuff like that. And then when they started playing I don't know what the fucking name of the song is, but everybody knows it, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then it was the bookkeeper. She did that, like, that subtle look at him, like, oh, I've seen him before. And she puts down the Alice in Wonderland book, and I went, oh my god, that's great. She's the White Rabbit. That's what they're talking about. Bugs Bunny, but not Bugs Bunny exactly, because Bugs Bunny was never part of the original part of the Matrix. But it made the connection for me at that point in time, and it was subtle. And then they slapped me in the fucking face with it, like, oh, here comes the dick, black.
And that's the thing that frustrated me so much, because that's a full-on theme throughout this movie. They could have used subtlety and let the audience get there themselves and feel very rewarded for it, and not even rewarded, but then go back and be like, man, I have to watch that again. What else did I miss? But they didn't do that. They every time that they had an opportunity for subtleness, they just slapped you in the face later, like, well, you know what? Maybe they're not catching on. We should tell them.
I think here's where the big problem was with the film. It assumed you were a casual viewer. It assumed you watched The Matrix and just said, oh, this is a cool action movie, and then didn't pick up on all the nuances of guns here, guns there. Here's the story of Neo, captivating. It just assumed, oh, it's just another action film that's set in the Matrix universe. And I will point out, from my father's perspective, because I talked to him at length about this, he was like, oh yeah, those were nice little callbacks that, like, I didn't necessarily pick up that Bugs Bunny is a rabbit, and then White Rabbit, and then, oh, follow the White Rabbit. It took me until they showed the tattoo, and I'm like, well, clearly you weren't, like, involved enough in the series to pick up on that right away. And I think they catered too much towards that person, which the average audience that was gonna potentially love this film, if they had left those things out, were the fans of the Matrix series, not just people who were like, yeah, the Matrix 1 was awesome.
That lies my point, though, is that they started off very good. They started off on a great path of letting that subtlety happen. And then they just, like, it's like they started building a house of cards, and every time they were almost done, they just decided to knock it down, and then start it again with subtleties, and then knock it down again. And that's, like, as an audience.
See, as an audience member, when you're talking about the subtlety, I really thought the first quarter of the movie was phenomenal. I really think they did a major job until halfway through the office shootout and everything that followed.
Yes.
Like, I liked Morpheus coming out of the bathroom being like, you know, whoa. And I was like, okay, it's a throwback. And I liked how he was like, well, it was supposed to be a throwback, but, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I liked that they did that little, okay, he explained it, and I was like, okay, I could deal with that. I liked all the way up until the dude picked up the pistol, and then suddenly he was Agent Smith.
Okay. Here's that scene for me really threw me off, because it finally was, all right, this film is following in the steps of the original Matrix, and at that point, with that subtlety of Agent Smith effectively coming alive, picking up that pistol, because if you remember in the first film, if you cut that part out right before then, Neo experienced a horrific moment with Agent Smith where he has the bug inserted through his belly button, and then he wakes up the next morning as if nothing happened. In Resurrections, that whole scene occurs, and then he comes to, and he's in the analyst's office talking to him as if he's his therapist, as we'll get into later, of course. But that moment right there kind of was like, oh no, this is gonna fall into, which, Cecil, I'm glad you brought up Force Awakens earlier. It's almost like they're trying to do the same thing as the major film that started the franchise, and you can then start to pick up the path it goes on. Needless to say, doesn't necessarily at that point say it's going to be a bad film, but it becomes somewhat predictable, and with all pseudo-reboots or sequels, you can kind of guess that it's going to go right to the end and then flip.
Okay, but here's my one thing though. So that scene, I want to tear apart that scene just a little bit. The Moto Morpheus. So Morpheus in this, look, if you haven't figured out that you're going to get spoilers out of listening to this episode, then you fucking picked the wrong episode to listen to.
Can we just call him Morpheus-esque or something along those lines? Because he's not real Morpheus, but he's like
Moto Morpheus to me.
Yeah, Metamorpheus.
Yeah, I don't want to go meta because that's a little bit too close to home. Anyway,
fine.
Anyway, so his character, like that character, there's a lot of stuff going on there. So like that character was built by Neo in a modal that was supposed to be accumulation of Morpheus and Agent Smith. And that was the way that Neo's subconscious mind created that character so that he could have that outlet for Morpheus. When he comes out at first, so the first time I watched this, I hated that character. I hated him with a passion. In fact, every time that character came on screen, it seemed like he was pissing all over the original Morpheus, and I hated him. Now, with that said, on the second time watching it, I realized that character was a lot better than I thought he was, because he wasn't Morpheus, he wasn't Agent Smith, but he was playing both of them. He was not only part of Neo, because you got to keep in mind that Agent Smith and Neo are actually the same person by the end of the third movie.
Duality of man. It's the duality of man. It is humankind, machine, reflection. That's what it ends up being. And I will point out, though, I did love in Resurrections when they finally made that comparison. They're like, we're basically the same. We follow the same path. And then right at the end, he's like, and this is where our paths split. And I thought that was an excellent choice of how to, like, flip everything on its head, where it's like, they want the same thing because they are effectively the same person living in two different realities in the most generic sense.
So that brings on to a completely separate conversation. But talking about Moto Morpheus. Yeah, talking about Moto Morpheus specifically, though. So that character, when he first was there, every time he opened his mouth, in fact, that scene where he walks out of the bathroom where he's like, he's quoting something from there, and he's like, I didn't know if that throwback would work, the lightning and everything. And he was so flippant about it, and it seemed so disrespectful about it. But then when I watched it a second time, and I said, okay, if this was Agent Smith and Morpheus at the same time, okay, I could see why he's doing that, because Agent Smith didn't really take Morpheus seriously the entire trilogy.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
I see where you're coming from on that one. So I do agree, when that scene first happened, I'm sitting on the couch going,
that's
I'm
Morpheus?
not sure about that.
Like, yeah, I get what you mean.
When the movie ended, and I was able to, and it's taken me a long time to think back, but when the movie ended, I was like, you know what? I actually kind of like that. That was a legit across the board. They were leading. There were only some things that remained relatively subtle, yet very abrasive at the same time. I don't know how to explain it, but there was one of those, it hit me like, when I watched it, I was very abrasive, like, the fuck, that is trash.
Yeah, remember when he's sitting there going like blah, blah, blah? He's like, yeah, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, you're literally just stepping all over his lines. And that really bugged me when it first happened. However, as I said, the second time going through, I realized that that's that character. And but here's the best part about that, is that's not actually Agent Smith and Morpheus. That is Neo's perception of both of them accumulated together.
He is purely designed to be a mentor character in the most generic sense, and Neo, that's the only way you perceived him, despite the fact that Lawrence Fishburne's portrayal of Morpheus was so much more in depth than just a mentor to Neo.
But also, if you take a look at it, if you think of it from Neo's perspective, okay? Now here's the thing that this is what actually made me accept this character a lot more. If you think about it from Neo's perspective, when Morpheus started going on and he said, you must choose this and blah, 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 blah. That's literally what Neo heard. Like, if you're just put yourself in Neo's shoes, Morpheus, who's, let's just label it out. Morpheus is a religious zealot. He's 100% a religious zealot.
Oh, across the board.
A lot of the stuff that he said was kind of like, I'm following you, but a lot of it is just blah, blah, blah. So that character then turned around and did that, I found the humor in it, because I found the humor coming from Neo. So the second time going through, that character developed more for me. Now, the one thing...
that character developed more for me after I had watched it. And so I watched the movie, and then I had to sit and digest the movie, because there was a lot to digest in that fucking movie.
Oh, yeah.
And when I had initially saw a lot of the scenes, I did not like that character at all. But after I sat on it, because, I watched it as soon as it came out. Not as soon as it came out. I watched it. It came out one day. I watched it on like a Sunday with my cousin's husband and all that. It was really great. But it took about 4 or 5 days to digest it before I even decided to try to take a second look at the movie. And when I digested it, I liked his character and I liked those scenes. So when you say, hey, the second time around I got it, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? The second time around I really did like a lot of that. But at first, it does. It rubbed me the wrong fucking way the first time that I was watching it.
Now, his
character...
There's one spot about that bathroom scene that I also want to point out, and I really want to, and we're getting in the weeds. We're not even that far into this movie, but that in that scene where Morpheus or Moto Morpheus presents the red pill. Did you notice that right off the bat he didn't give an option of a blue pill? He just gave the option of a red pill.
I did not like that at all. It was a natural assumption, because remember, this is effectively based on Neo's opinion of Morpheus. I did not like it. It was an assumption of hey, just take it.
Hold on. You missed the first part of the movie then.
Moto Morpheus even said, that's not a choice. The choice is already made.
Yes,
but here's the thing. Moto Morpheus went in there with the assumption the choice was already made.
He makes that assumption so many times throughout the film.
Exactly.
In my opinion, it's only inappropriate in that exact moment, because I think red pill, blue pill is a quintessential question when you talk about the Matrix series.
I disagree
the Matrix in
entirely.
General. Okay, go ahead.
No, I mean... We already know. We've watched. So here we are. 5 Matrix movies, because the Animatrix actually counts in as canon.
100%.
We are 5 Matrix fucking movies in. Everybody knows it's only the illusion of choice. The choice has already been made. Neo is a glitch in the Matrix. Agent Smith is a glitch in the Matrix. Morpheus is a glitch in the Matrix. Trinity is a glitch in the Matrix. They're all glitches, and how do they handle the glitches is how they went across. And then 2 and 3 really fuck things up with like, oh, we're gonna add thousands of glitches that do these things. Yeah, fuck all that bullshit. But yeah, we knew that it is only the illusion of choice. However, we know that the human psyche likes to have the perceived option of choice. So yes, Morpheus fucked it up in that where he only offered the red pill and not the blue pill when they did it that way, because he had already thought that Neo would always take the red pill, because during the intro sequence we saw him take all of the blue pills.
And I think this is more important to call back to understand Neo's psyche when it comes to the Oracle. He knew deep down that the way the Oracle explained things to him in the numerous occasions that he met with her, as well as every other character, is the Oracle will only tell you up until a point you do not understand the leap you might be taking. And I think that's a very key thing to hang on to, where if Morpheus offered both, and in fact giving him a choice to take either pill, that may have broken his mind further and been like, I've been in this situation before. I remember the Oracle. So many callbacks could have been made in Neo's head at that moment, but Morpheus just assumed he's taken the red pill once, he'll take it again. But I will say, I do like, though, that when the callback they made to that exact moment, maybe 10 scenes later or so, when they're sitting on the deck of the ship, and it's pointed out that, how is Trinity reading? Pure blue pill. Well, how is I reading? The same.
The exact same way. Yeah.
Exactly. And I like that they at least tried to address it, but I do not think that they should have allowed Morpheus to do that. If Morpheus was truly supposed to be a expectation and understanding of Neo's interpretation, then it should have been both pills offered. And I think that was a very fatal flaw there.
But you got to keep in mind that if Neo's writing that from his subconscious, he's writing that as if the choice was already made. So that Moto Morpheus only presented the red pill right off the bat is actually character appropriate, because Moto Morpheus is going by the assumption that the choice is already made. And that's where he screwed up. Now, if you look at Neo in that scene, Neo, which you're assuming, everybody who's watching is assuming he's going to take the red pill right off the bat, he's already gone and said, wait a minute, no. And this is just to show, like, I believe, like, this is the one scene that I can actually say I liked the second time around, because it showed the start and the psychosis that Neo was now in. Because you see the whole montage at the beginning where he's taking the blue pills and he's just stuck in this loop. And they actually do the loop thing a couple of times. In fact, if you watch them while they're doing the scenes where they're doing the game development thing, where they're talking, you see that the guy...
The birds.
Oh, the birds too, yeah. But if you see, when they're talking, they're doing the same conversation. But if you notice, it's the same conversation 2 different times. The guy's changing shirts each time. And I thought that was a great way to show, along with the rest of the montage, that Neo was stuck in this loop. And that this loop was just going to be never ending. And then when you get to this Agent Smith part, where it's breaking that loop, it shows that he's so stuck in this psychosis that he doesn't want to escape, because he doesn't want to believe that it's real. Even though
if you notice,
it's totally
when Mr.
real.
Smith picks up the gun, Neo's like, nah, it's not fucking possible. In his mind, you realize that's what he's seeing.
Before that, he's showing his love for Trinity, and he's stuck in that loop, and he thinks that if he stays in the loop, he'll get some potential shot at her, because they show right away he's instantaneously attracted to her across the board.
Without him recognizing it's a loop, though. That's the key, though. Without him recognizing he's on the treadmill.
The first fucking quarter of the movie is subtle. It's laid out. It's done the proper fucking way from what I saw. Until the fucking scene where right after the Morpheus out of the bathroom and Agent Smith stuff.
So I will say, leading up to that, I found some very interesting things. And this is actually stuff I documented on my phone while I was watching. This is when I was hyper-focused.
Hold on. Before you go into that, though, I just want to point out this one thing, which I feel personally would have made the movie significantly better to start with. So if you watched, you'll remember that in all reflections that you saw of Neo, he was an old, balding man.
I was just about to say that. Right. I was just about to say that.
Here's the one thing that I will say, that if they did this, I would have liked this movie probably 10 times more than I did. Instead of having it be Keanu Reeves playing out through all of that, have it so that when you see him, he's the old man. And in all the reflections, it's Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves. Yes, because that would have shown that it was Neo, but it's not the realization. And I will point this out. So I looked at it.
They can't sell it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree.
I know they can't. But if they did just that, and they showed the old man walking through with a reflection of Neo, and then when he busts out, he's now Neo, and then when he goes back in, he's Neo, or maybe if he goes back in, he's the old man. That would have sold it more for me, because that would have shown that what the Matrix was doing was actually taking hold of him. And then later on in the movie, when he comes back as Neo, it would have shown his character growth and his development in a very subtle and very impactful way.
So, and you know what? Actually, looking at it and thinking about it now, you're right. If they would have had the old man and everybody's going, who the fuck is this? What the fuck is going on? But the reflections were Keanu Reeves and everything. And then, of course, because we know the end of the movie, hashtag spoilers, fuck yourself, we know that his body was reconstructed entirely, so he never actually, quote-unquote, aged. He's always going to see himself as that specific age and all of that. And yeah, as he busts out as Neo, okay. I can agree with you now, and looking back at it, and that actually really would have been something.
Wouldn't it have
that
been?
I would taken a really good fucking look at? Like, oh my god,
like you watch the movie.
Is that really Neo?
Yeah, you watch it and you're like, hey, who's this old guy? And you're like, oh, Thomas Anderson. You're like, that's not Thomas Anderson. But you watch it and you're like, okay, what am I watching? I know he's in the Matrix, but what the hell am I actually watching? And then you catch a glimpse in a reflection. You're like, wait a minute, was that Keanu Reeves? Is that? Oh, okay. That's Neo. Okay, I get it now.
That would have been phenomenal. You're right. That would have been phenomenal. And then they're like, oh my god, Neo. And they're talking Neo to this old dude. And this old dude's sitting there like, what? No. Yeah, like on that, the whole bathroom scene would have been completely different.
Exactly. And on the rooftop, if he's sitting there on the rooftop and Bugs is talking to him like he's Neo, and he's like, like, what the hell are you talking about? This is just this old man. And then he goes through that whole scene where they move in and they actually show him that theater scene, and they're showing his reflection. That scene would have been so much more impactful if they're like, well, this is what the world sees you as, but this is what you see yourself as. And they're like, holy shit.
I 100% agree. I will say, though, a more minor thing they could have done that would have had a similar impact, not quite as big, was in the final scene before Trinity pulls herself out of being Tiffany. And I'm only jumping ahead because we're talking about this right now, is if we got a glimpse of maybe a reflection in the same coffee tabletop that she was seeing old man Neo.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like you'd have to sell it across the
board.
One
little thing could have made a huge difference. And whether that's portraying it to the audience in general, that Neo was this old D.N.A changed man. D.N.A, what is it? Digital neurological image or whatever, something like that.
I thought it was DSI, digital signature images.
Yes, exactly. So you either had a choice of doing that, or even just the bare minimum of if Trinity... And this took me a second watch through to pick up all the reflections and stuff like that, because, to be honest, I did not pick up the reflection at first when Neo looks at himself in the mirror very briefly in one of the first few scenes, and it's the older man. I did not make that connection. I actually missed the fact that he looked like an old man. And the fact that Trinity, in that scene where they're talking in the coffee shop, Trinity's reflection in the coffee shop table, which is glass, is not Trinity, and it's her new DSI. That alone kind of like triggered a bunch of stuff in my head, but they were sitting at a goddamn identical table. They could have shown what each of them are seeing. And if they had just gone from the perspective of, say, everything you're seeing from this point on is Neo, then fine. Show her reflection as Tiffany and not as Trinity. That would have been even enough to say, okay, Trinity's not even recognizing him as Neo, and then it's the moment she's being pulled away. Because I think they tried to capture it, but they missed a key point in showing it to the audience of she's still seeing this fake Anderson.
Well, and they could have done that at that scene where literally when they're talking and they're surrounded by cops, which, by the way, that should have been a really big red fucking flag that to Trinity that, hey, there's something really weird going on here because you're surrounded by a bunch of cops, a bunch of friggin' weirdly decked out cyberpunk people, and fucking Neil Patrick Harrison sitting down at the table. In that scene, like, that would have been a great scene for them to shift over and make it so that Neo, instead of looking like the old man in the Matrix, now looks like Neo in the Matrix.
Neo.
Yeah, and she looks back, sees him, and goes, oh my god, it's Neo. And then that could have been the scene. But that's also where, like, Trinity shouldn't have looked like Trinity throughout that. And I understand why they did it, because the audience, and that's the thing, that's where the subtlety thing really drives me nuts, because they had such a great opportunity to let subtlety drive the movie and really make something hit home, and they didn't. They could have made Trinity look like whatever her new DSI is, and Neo look like his new DSI the entire time, and let the subtle reflections hit in, and really make that hit home.
So if they had chose to either focus on what Trinity saw or what Neo saw, and personally I think it would have been easier to focus on what Neo saw. So if he was permanently that new face, and then in the mirror he was himself, and then in the glass table reflection he was himself and not this new DSI, and then the moment he breaks out of the modal, the treadmill,
the new Matrix,
the moment he exactly. And then from that point forward, he is now projecting a new version of himself because he's not, and it would be easily explainable, he is not connected to the same interface anymore.
It would have been fantastic.
Fake his DSI.
No, it would have used subtlety. It would have been used subtlety the way that really it seemed like they started to work with on that movie, and then they just didn't. And this is one of the reasons why I will say this is a bad movie, because they had such opportunity to do so many good things, but then they just, it's almost like they looked at it and said, the audience is too stupid to pick up on this. We're not going to take this risk. We're just going to slap him in the face with it. And that part right there is really what pissed me off. I mean, like, the whole rabbit thing, her name is Buzz, like, there's so many opportunities for subtlety. It drives me nuts. Like, the loop thing. And like, this is one of the ones, okay, so I'm going to give the movie this. The whole loop thing, the treadmill thing.
Absolutely brilliant.
Hold on. So absolutely,
the concept.
Absolutely brilliant up until the end, where they literally just slapped you in the face and said, oh yeah, by the way, this is what we were doing. When they started at the beginning, like, as I said, with the guy making the speech and his shirt changing in the speech a whole bunch of times, showing that they're doing the same speech over and over again, and that it's a loop, that was subtle. That was really great. And it was showing that he was stuck in this loop. But then towards the end of the movie, or actually it wasn't even towards the end of the movie, it was like 2/3 of the way through the movie, they slap you in the face and be like, oh yeah, by the way, we were trying to tell you this at the beginning of the movie, but we're going to tell you it right now. And it was like,
oh dude, the end of the movie was shit.
Well, it's just, they kept setting up these great dominoes for where subtlety was going to be such a fantastic way to tell the story. And then it's just okay.
They fucked it all up.
They did that.
It was the fat kid that walked through your goddamn dominoes that you've been spending hours building up, and he just kicks through.
But what I'm saying is that they started. I agree. Started getting that subtlety working so well, and they set up the dominoes to be so great. And then every single time they're just like, yeah, we got something great here. Now let's just fucking throw it to the ground. Who cares? We're just going to slap in the face because you know what? It truly felt to me like they were telling the audience, you're too stupid to catch on to this. So we're just going to tell you.
All right. So I had to take a piss because it is what it is. And the girls had to go to
blood.
bed. So,
it's the Vikings blood. Let's be honest.
No, it's all good. I had to take a piss, and then I gotta, hug the girls and all the good stuff because it's important. So, are we towards the end of the movie now? Do we eventually fucking get there?
We're not there.
So, hold on.
Okay, what part of the movie are we at?
Our hyper-focus is at the beginning. However, there is enough connections towards the end where we're kind of like going to the end, but there's still a lot to talk about. So, if you don't mind, I will lead us into that middle phase, which is like Neo's effective resurrection.
What if I do mind?
Fuck you, Damok.
You said if I don't mind.
He's got you there.
I said, what if I do mind?
Fair enough. So, the middle part
Let me lead you into the middle. Not a problem.
The middle part of this film is all about the political, which, by the way, I 100% agree is a great implementation compared to 2 and 3. I'm just going to say that. It's the political aspect of letting Neo go do what he needs to do with the support of the remainder of the human race's government, effectively.
But he doesn't.
And I agree.
Yeah, you missed that a little bit.
Hold on. He is not going with the government. He is not going with the government. And that's another key moment of the Metamorpheus saying, it's not even a choice. We know you're going to get on this ship. Even though there is technically a choice at this moment, he's saying there isn't a choice. And I will point out that is a very horrible way of implying that these decisions are Neo's choice, despite the fact that in all 3 of the first Matrix movies, the Oracle did a phenomenal job of every major moment where Neo had a legitimate choice, not something he was pushed into doing, he then made a decision. And that's where her explanation of what occurred ends. And if they had stuck with that, where technically Neo, even though we know he would 100% have picked to go try and save Trinity in that first moment where he's in the cell on the balcony and there's Metamorpheus. It creates himself in the semi-syndicate or whatever it's called, right next to him. And he's like, there is no choice here. We already know the choice, whatever he says. There technically was a choice there, but it was not as impactful as if it was a Oracle influenced decision. I say influence very loosely.
But that's where the Motomorpheus really turns out because, granted, he's written by Neo, so he's already written into his programming that the choice is already made. The education, the lessons learned by Neo are already there. So Motomorpheus is already he's almost like Jiminy Cricket at that point in time, where he's just saying what's already on Neo's mind. He's just spitting it right back out.
He's Morpheus in a narrator form. He's Morpheus in a narrator form.
Hold on. He's not even Morpheus in a narrator form. Not even close. He's not Morpheus, for one. He's
Neo's
not
Morpheus in narrator form. Neo's Morpheus.
But the beginning of the movie already hashes it the fuck out. In the first 10 minutes, before he gets his goddamn latte and all that, because he needs to go for fucking coffee, they hash out that the Matrix has always been the illusion of choice.
I agree with that.
Hold on. It has always been the illusion of choice, and that choice never fucking mattered. Neo knows this. Neo goes through it. I believe the first quarter of the movie, from the start to the first quarter, right before it gets into the or right as it turns into Agent Smith picks up the gun and all that, was actually exceedingly well done. And I even thoroughly enjoyed Morpheus' character, but not at first, only when I had to digest it after the fact. After I had seen the whole movie, I went, you know what? I really enjoyed a lot of these things, but we need to move. We're like 2 hours in this podcast. We absolutely need to move into the middle section of this movie and towards the end section. But honestly, the end we can just skip because the end was trash.
I do not agree. I do not agree with the fact that your generic statement is that trash. But I also will not get into it just yet, into my full opinion. I will say, though, however, you are right. On a first watch through, Morpheus seems very kind of like, I guess the best way to refer to it is decaffeinated Morpheus. And then on the second watch through, you make that connection that, yes, this is Neo's interpretation of Morpheus. And I agree with...
Not the second watch through. I didn't have to do a second watch through. I couldn't stomach the stupid fucking movie for a second goddamn time. The movie... Honestly, 1 out of 10, get fucked, don't watch it. The first quarter of the movie set everything up to be amazing.
Completely disagree.
The second part of the entire movie to get to the climax of the film was a whole bunch of bullshit in between that had all nostalgia throwback entirely. And then the end of the fucking movie, if you want to be goddamn obvious, I'm gonna watch fucking Neo go, and put up his fucking bullet shield. Keanu Reeves didn't even have fucking effort in his goddamn face. The end of the movie was like,
that's not what that was.
Okay, hold on.
Watch it. What did you expect him to do? They literally pointed out that Keanu Reeves attempted to fly, and I love that they actually allowed the ground to move in the same way, and he was like, nope, can't fucking do it. I lost that. Not that he lost the ability, actually, that he forgot how to implement it. But I will say, he did throughout that film experience something that he only partially did through the trilogy, which was the, like, effective, screw the Star Wars term here, but force push or force deflect. We always knew he could deflect bullets and he could use bullet time to dodge bullets. But we never assumed the push outside of when he was overwhelmed by the Agent Smiths, or Mr. Smith, I should say at this point.
Alright, Vintage. Fucking listen, dude. Listen for a second. Listen. First off, the end fucking quarter of the movie was utter trash. Whether you agree or not, doesn't matter, because it's already been rated as one of the shittiest fucking spots in a movie. So, not a problem.
Don't care.
However, if they wanted to make it, if they really wanted it to make it feel like that, you can see that Neo is having a hard time putting up those force fields to show bullets. You know what would have really drawn me into one of that fucking scenes? You would have really been like, oh shit, this is legit. Was if a single bullet had come through and ripped him in the shoulder, had ripped Trinity in one spot.
I disagree.
Not a vital organ, but you would show it would be Neo trying to put up his best effort and struggling, but he was actually struggling and not just going, watch the end scene again, and all he does is go, ugh.
Okay, hold on.
It's really bad.
I completely disagree. I think it would have been a better opportunity earlier. And Cecil, I'll let you go.
No, hold on.
I think it would have been better.
Take a breath for a second.
Fine.
This is actually what you guys are both touching on is something that is actually a topic that I wanted to hit on. Neo's ability to fight. Now, I say ability to fight. If you take a look at him from the trilogies,
effectiveness.
Hold on. If you take a look at him from the first movies, for the first three, his motions, everything that he did. Now, granted, he was a lot younger then too, so this also falls into it. Watching this new movie, all of his fights seem incredibly muted comparatively. It seems like he's fighting more like John Wick would fight versus the way Neo would fight.
I'm 50-50 on that because one of the main things that was pointed out to me when I watched it the second time is when Mr. Smith brought in all the exiles, and you got to see
don't get me started
the development of Neo through that fight to finally restart his ability to
I fucking hated
run
the
off the
XL
wall.
scene.
Fine,
But-
whatever.
but
Doesn't matter. But my thoughts here are the key point here is everyone else was fighting Mr. Smith, and then finally Neo takes him down to Neo fights him right at the beginning of that scene, and then he fights him right at the end of that scene. Morpheus primarily fought him, but the more important thing in my mind was the development of Neo from, if you take the previous scene where he had any combat, was the replication of the I know Kung Fu, prove it scene from the original Matrix, where it's Morpheus and Neo in the same dojo on the water fighting, and Neo's getting his effective mojo back.
Right.
He did not get his entire mojo back until he fought Mr. Smith. And at that point, you got that final moment where Mr. Smith...
Hold on, brother.
Where
Give
Mr.
me a
Smith
second.
is...
Slow down.
You are not the same person, effectively. I don't have the exact quote. But then Neo runs up and around the wall and kicks him in the face, and he's like, "You're right." However, I personally believe that was meant to throw off the audience to understand that even though Neo was not 100% the same guy, he was like 90% the same guy. Where if he was expected to fight Mr. Smith in the final scene of Matrix Resurrection, he probably could have done 90% as well, in my personal opinion. And it's not till the final part of the film where you then understand what he means by "I'm not the same guy."
Okay. So, with that, they actually do a throwback to that final scene in the office. If you notice, they're in the rain. Did anybody notice that? That was a throwback. That was a throwback directly to the
I
film.
loved
I picked it apart,
that.
yes.
On the second watch through, when I made that connection.
And that's when
fantastic.
Smith wakes up and fights and figures out who he is. Now, in that scene with the exiles, the only person who actually attacks Smith other than Neo is Bugs. And she fires like 3-4 rounds at him, and he just dodges like a normal agent would. Nobody else fights him. He bolts off to another thing, and then all of a sudden he comes back and he tackles Neo down into the underground. And then it's basically just Neo and Smith fighting down there while everybody else is fighting the exiles. Now, the thing that the exiles are completely irrelevant. They could have not been in that scene. It could have just been a scene between Neo and Smith and having them show up afterwards. Could have been something like a glitch in the Matrix where a brick wall shows up and they're trying to figure out their way around. That scene where they're... Go ahead.
They could have... They could have actually gone to a throwback scene between...
That's what they did.
Neo and Smith.
That's what they did, though. That scene was them in the underground.
But they fucked it up and they cut it all short, and it became bullshit because they tried to do that Exiles bullshit, and they kept cutting from that scene to the Exiles fighting, back to them, back to the Exiles. They could have actually had a meaningful, oh shit, we can't fight Agent Smith. We can't even shoot at him, but Neo can fight him, and then they can all watch and go, oh my god.
And that's the thing, is that they had an opportunity there to really start showing Neo coming out. And you even saw him where Neo did his little force push against Smith, attacking him, and then he couldn't do it again. So in that scene, that's kind of, for me, that was that scene where Neo took the shot in the shoulder, because you saw him use the force push to block Smith's attack. And then he did it again, but then Smith broke through his defenses and he couldn't use it again. So in my mind, that's kind of like that portion which you were describing there. Now, I honestly feel that if there was a little bit more struggle, because Neo struggled throughout the entire film, and he literally struggled all the way up until the very end of the film. Like, that's when he finally realized his full potential or his full powers.
But not even
at the end, right before credits roll.
Yes. So if I hate that.
Yeah.
Okay, but agreed. I hate that. I hate the end quarter of the movie. I think it was baseless fucking action thrown in because they went, oh shit, guys, we haven't put enough Matrix action into a Matrix movie. But Neo's whole thing was he's on the back of the motorcycle throwing up force wall after force wall after force wall, and they show him gritting his teeth, and they show him like, oh fuck, it's really hard for me to throw up these walls to stop with everything. And I would have liked to show an actual struggle where he was like, oh my god, yeah, I'm the one, but I'm not the one because I don't have 100% of my powers. And he's throwing up a force wall and like another bullet just fucking nicks him.
Yeah.
I say critically wounds him.
Yeah, I'm tracking.
Right?
I'm tracking. I would have liked to see that as well. My big gripe, I mean, I don't mind that they did a Samus Aran on him. I mean, it's a very common trope in a lot of different places. You take whoever's super powered up and you strip their powers and have them gain those powers back. That's a very common trope. I'm okay with that. My big thing is that they, like, at no point in time in the movie, and even at the very, very end where he gets his abilities to fly, and you're making the assumption at that point in time that he's full power.
To fly.
He does. He flies with Trinity at the very end. He is not. He is not being held by her.
He absolutely
does. No, he doesn't. No, she doesn't.
It's very obvious.
Okay.
Trinity.
Hold on. Watch it again. You'll see that he is flying by himself, and they're actually doing a rotation, like a barrel roll around each other.
Yeah, they do a barrel roll around each other.
You can shake your head all you want. Go back
together.
and watch it again. I've just watched it right before the show. 100%. He is flying on his own. She is not touching him. They do a barrel roll around each other with her not touching him. So the assumption at that point in time is that he has gained back his full powers.
Right, and Trinity has realized hers, and he has opened her up to the whole thing because of the two special characters being who they are.
Yes, and now she's, because the way the new Matrix is built, instead of it being one anomaly or focused around the one anomaly, it's focused around the two as an anomaly, which I get that. I understand that. The big question that comes...
I see what you mean. It was the final scene.
That's what I said,
I was more thinking about the escape scene where Neo is unable to perform.
No, we're talking about the final scene.
That's specifically why I said just before the credits roll. Yeah.
My bad.
So there's oh fuck! So like I can even, like, one of the big questions that I had throughout the movie as well was, why was Agent Smith there in the first place? And they explained that farther as they went on, where they said that Agent, and it makes sense because, and this is one of those things where I think, Damok, you were saying about it when you first watched it, where you said they completely ignored or completely retconned the second and third movie. And I had said, well, no, they didn't, because in this movie, that's how they explained Smith being there. And it actually took me through about 3/4 of the way through the movie to finally figure that part out, was that Smith and Neo were literally the same person. So when they resurrected Neo, they resurrected the Smith code with him and inserted them both into this Matrix and repurposed that code, which was then Smith. And the analyst, which, god damn, I hate that. I mean, Neil Patrick Harrison as a fucking villain is just, like, I'm sorry. It did not work.
Bombed, dude.
It just did not work.
He is not a standard villain. I will say that. He's not a standard villain, but I really enjoyed the way he put his unique Neil Patrick Harris twist on the role. And what I mean by that is almost just like, nah, bullshit the entire time. And half being silly, like, you thought you could do this, or you thought you could do that. I personally thought, if you were to compare him to, say, the Architect, which is the only overarching person you could compare him to, I think he was a much better character. But I also believe that the usage of him as effectively Neo's therapist was a major oversight. I think they should have used a totally different character, and then Neil Patrick Harris should have been introduced at the motorcycle repair warehouse. That should have been his first introduction scene. It's like, I'm the analyst.
Hold on. Now you're changing his whole fucking character. So, yeah, no, in the movie, he was supposed to be comedic relief to a certain extent in a semi-serious role, and he failed. And sorry, I like Neil Patrick Harris. Don't ever get me wrong, dude. But, like, the dude's fucking amazing. But he failed in the Matrix.
On so many levels, because he, like, the character. Okay, damn it, now we're getting off onto a different tangent. Okay, so the character, the analyst, okay, he's supposed to be the architect or the new architect. Throughout the entire movie,
pseudo-architect.
No, he's supposed to
overseeing. He's
supposed to
but
be.
He's not
He's supposed to be the new
one.
architect. He replaced the last one. They even said when he took over, and they reference him taking over for the architect.
Fair enough. I felt like there was a slight
yeah,
gap
but
there.
that's a perception.
Someone else
though.
was creating it, but it was in his
the way that
sorry, my understanding was someone else was creating the Matrix in his understanding.
So he literally took over.
No more Vikings blood. He
even said it in the movie. Since I've taken over, a production has been et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He referenced him taking over and the old architect being focused on numbers and him being focused on the human brain. So, I mean, they make several references about him taking over as the new architect. They just refer to him as the analyst. Now, my biggest problem is that the architect in the original, he was not God of the Matrix. He kind of like did the subtle controls. He was the Oz. He was the man behind the curtain pulling the levers. Now, they switched over Neil Patrick Harrison to being the equivalent of the One. But as a villain.
I feel like the reason for redefining his name from architect to analyst was to imply that there was a variation there.
He was his analyst.
Like, personally to me, and yes. So I personally believe that he was separate from an architect, not the architect, but the person that actually designed, but it was designed in Neil Patrick Harris's character's understanding and belief of how they could control and harness Neo and Trinity's energy. If you then take one more step from that, and personally, I think that he effectively implemented himself with, and I saw this a couple places on the internet, with like super user rights.
But that's what Neo has. Neo is the super user.
He's the architect, dude.
Neo has like generic system administration rights.
No.
But then you have superhuman.
No, he doesn't.
It's like one step above.
Neo is supposed to have. He is the super user. He is the one.
He's a domain admin. Okay.
I don't think
the architect's
a
domain admin. Neo's a domain admin.
I feel like Neo is a super user, and I think that the mistake here was Mr. Smith was previously supposed to effectively be a system admin able to eradicate.
Neo writes the code to allow him to fly, bud.
Yeah, but at the same time,
domain admin.
Mr. Smith writes the same code to allow him to fly, but I feel like Mr. Smith's technically one above him in the hierarchy of what you're forgetting there, though, doing.
Is that Mr. Smith had, like, Mr. Smith's specific code, which is what he actually emphasized in this movie as well. His initial code is to be able to copy over others. When he touched Neo, all of a sudden, after he touched Neo and started to incorporate him, that's when he got I thought it was Reloaded.
Revolution. It's the final one.
No,
Revolution.
Not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where he's in the park and there's all the hundreds of Smiths. He starts. Okay, hold on.
He never tries to
I appreciate that you got a lot to say, but before you cut me off, hear me out. In that scene, Mr. Smith, or Agent Smith, pushes in and starts to incorporate himself over Neo. Yes, he does. If you don't believe me, watch it again. You see the metallic stuff go over Neo and start to incorporate him, and Neo pulls his hand out. Dude, you're shaking your head no. Go watch it if you don't believe me.
From what I remember, they piled on him and then he blew them away.
Not from what you remember.
I 100% off of memory. I can 100% respect that you're trying to go from memory. I'm going from memory as well. And I'm telling you, I remember this exactly. Agent Smith pushes his hand into Neo and starts to envelop him in the same stuff that the mirror did in the first Matrix movie. As it starts to envelop him, Neo pushes him down and pulls his hand out. It was at that point in time that I believe, and at least from everything that I've read as well, is when Agent Smith started to gain the powers of Neo. Because he copied himself over top of it.
Now, if you remember, hold on though. If you remember, when he goes to put his hand into Neo, it was very much Agent Smith and Neo were both surprised at the fact that it went to that metallic, like the mirror image. It wasn't like Agent Smith knew this was going to happen. It was that's a big crucial scene in the movie where he does that, and it's like, oh shit, and the audience all goes, oh shit.
Because at that point in time, Agent Smith had only ever taken control of somebody who was jacked into the Matrix from the Matrix. He didn't realize that he could do that to a person.
Or a bot.
But he didn't realize that he could do that to somebody who was remotely jacked into the Matrix. He thought he could only do directly. That's where it opened up even more, because then Agent Smith was able to invade the human world, which they also touched on with the new with Resurrection, where the programs were able to get that nanomagnetic aspirating whatever thing. Basically, the little bots were like, honestly, I thought that was pretty cool.
That was fucking crazy.
In my
wasn't
opinion,
it?
I thought that part of it was really awesome.
Oh, no, loved it. Don't get me wrong. It's just fucking crazy, though,
like,
right?
holy shit, that actually happened?
Oh, shit,
when they did that with Morpheus or Moto Morpheus, I was like, holy shit, they can do that? I'm like, well, it's a fucking movies. They can do anything they want. I really enjoyed that. That's another part of this movie that I really, really enjoyed. But anyways, so we're traveling off of there. So we get back to the analyst. Okay. Now we can just for the sake of time, we can argue whether he was a system administrator or a super user or whatever. Whatever it boils down to is he had power over what Neo had for a time. And it was explained like he had that power the entire time. But then it flips around and you realize that he's not the only one with that power. When Agent Smith comes into that scene, breaking right through his time-stopping thing and busting through it. Yeah. And busting through
the bullet time effect. Okay. Because they go through it. They specifically mention that they can freeze the Matrix and manipulate his bullet time movement because they can freeze him and move faster.
Well, he was reversing it at one point in time. It wasn't actually going faster. He was actually rewinding it, which is what they do every time Neo has a fuck up.
Right. That was right, and that was fucking crazy to me. I really, really liked that aspect of it when they were like, oh, we're doing it this way, and you actually have no control of it. And I went, well, oh, and fuck, dude, how?
With the cat, though, that made the whole deja vu thing really actually take effect. Because Neo was the only one who was experiencing that. And he's saying this is happening faster than you can think, but he was experiencing it. But it explains how in the original Matrix that they made that whole deja vu thing happen. Because everything was rewinding because they were changing the Matrix. But they referred to it as changing the Matrix. But in this film, they actually explained that, which I appreciated.
Yes, because you see Neo is standing in the middle of the room, face to face with Trinity, and then they effectively skip back a frame or a dozen or so, and he's now entering exactly. And by the way, I don't know if you guys picked it up, but Neil Patrick Harris's The Architect's cat is named Deja Vu to fuck with Neo. So he doesn't make the connection and thinks, you just put my cat into your game.
That was the spoof on every time they saw that black cat, deja vu would happen. And they did that several times in the original trilogy, where they would see that cat and deja vu would happen. And he'd go, oh, deja vu, I just saw that cat a second ago. That's how they linked that from the original trilogy over to this new movie, by doing that, so that when he saw a black cat and he thought deja vu, he attributed it to the analyst's cat. So, there was a lot of little subtle things in there that, thankfully, they didn't, just flat out slap you in the face and explain. But there was just so many that they did that they could have just gotten a lot better with.
Subtle things.
May I ask, did any of you guys feel it be very bizarre with the second interaction of Neo with the group, when he actually did choose to take the red pill, how somehow the mirror turned into a gateway to the architect's room?
I didn't find
Neil
that strange.
Patrick Harris walking back into frame.
So
that's one of the things I didn't understand, because my understanding of how those mirrors worked was more of a, this isn't a real reality kind of understanding. Not that they could be utilized until, obviously, we hear Bugs say, well, you got to go through the mirror.
Think of it this way, and this goes back to that first scene with Moto Morbius in the bathroom. Remember when I said that it was showing that he had such this psychosis that he was still so stuck in there? So even though Neo was starting to accept that, oh, this shit's happening, he still had that psychosis of, oh man, I'm fucked up. So the first place that he wanted this mirror to take him was back to where, well, his psychosis felt he was safe, which was the analyst. So the first thing that popped up was, bam, there's the analyst. And he's like, oh no, you see me. And even the analyst at that point in time is surprised because he's like, holy shit, like you dropped off the face of the planet for a second and now I see you. Hey, come back to me.
So here's where I get confused, though, because if you look back to the first Matrix film, when he finally gets the understanding and tries to touch the mirror, it engulfs him as if it's Mr. Smith's engulfing him. That's one of the things I'm not able to connect, is that's similar, because it's like it was engulfing him as Mr. Smith, which obviously was not possible at that point in the first Matrix film. But now he's entering to another part of the Matrix as opposed to walking through a mirror into an exit effectively, because as we learned, mirrors are a primary exit.
Yeah, so they don't need to use phone booths anymore.
As opposed to phone booths.
Reflections, yeah.
And not just mirrors, though. I really like that. I like that as mirrors and windows and all that, but you're right, reflections.
I did think that was really cool.
I thought that was interesting.
And I thought that was a practical evolution of the Matrix, where if they're going to improve overall, obviously when you increase the fidelity of an experience, you're obviously doing so much more on the back end.
Well,
so obviously that would make sense that there is more ways out.
I missed where they fully explained why.
Do you know why?
The reflections.
Okay, so just follow me on this path for a second, okay? The first Matrix trilogy was really focused on Alice in Wonderland, right? Right? Alice in Wonderland. Follow the white rabbit. Let's see how far the rabbit hole goes, okay? All right, so.
Yeah, agreed.
The sequel. Does anybody know what the sequel to Alice in Wonderland was? Through the Looking Glass.
It's like Beyond the Looking Glass.
And do you know what a looking glass is?
Through the Looking Glass.
You're right.
A mirror. A mirror.
Spyglass.
Through the Looking Glass.
A mirror.
Yeah, it's a mirror. It's always a mirror.
A mirror
well,
or
it's not
a reflection.
Spyglass, it's a mirror.
So this being the sequel to the original trilogy, do you see where it comes in now?
Okay, you know what? Now I see it. So, okay, I will give it that until this very moment, I was like, okay, I know they kind of semi-explained it in a certain, they're like, oh, well, that's not how we have to do things anymore. And I was like, okay, well, how do things work now? They never really got into the explanation, but now that you've said that, you're right. The second book to Alice in Wonderland, that, yes, absolutely. Reflections across the board. And you know, fuck, I'm going to have to sit and think on that one, because there was a lot of scenes. Yeah, there was a lot of scenes that I was like, okay, well, they hacked the mirror. I understand the mirror because the mirror was important in the first Matrix, but I wasn't exactly sure why. But now that you're talking about the second Alice in Wonderland book makes a lot more sense.
Now, let me ask you guys a question here that I've been thinking about myself. We understand that in the original Matrix trilogy, it's a war from humanity against the machines that are controlling them through the simulation of the Matrix. What is the real battle in Resurrections? Now, this is something that I've been fucking with.
It's super easy.
That I've been fucking my head with. Because we understand that from some of the Animatrix stuff and stuff like that, machines are fighting machines. Some machines are going to humans because they recognize that that's their greatest chance of survival. They've got all these over-encompassing avenues of survival, but it's never once referenced because we assume the analyst is a machine because the Matrix is being powered and created by machines.
Synthetics.
But what I can't wrap my head around... Synthetics, fair enough. What I can't wrap my head around, though, is if we can understand that machines are powering the Matrix, and it's something that they're implying to do, because as we see in one of the final scenes of Revolutions, the preliminary understanding of the I can't remember the technology name, but the same thing that is creating the architect's face talking to Neo on the ledge from the ship is the same technology that's then used to implement Morpheus and other programs like that into the real world. Where is this machine battle? Are we effectively at a peace level? And the real question here is how to prolong the human race by keeping them effectively enslaved, as they've referred to them as? Or is it to free everyone to rebuild civilization as a whole? That's something that I'm really struggling with, that this movie fails to take into account, in my opinion.
All right, so I actually can touch on a bunch of that, because, and I believe that they explained in the movie, but maybe this is just my interpretation. So take that with a grain of salt. So one of the big things that they described is that the Agent Smith program was a virus that was basically taking over the machine world. And if not put into check, if not kept in check, was basically going to destroy the machine world. Yes,
they refer to it as a viral protocol in 2 and 3 when they referenced the events of Neo in the first movie.
Yeah. So the Agent Smith protocol, or the Agent Smith virus, was going to take over the machine world and literally destroy it, for lack of a better term. So when Neo went and sacrificed himself to destroy the Agent Smith program, at the time, before I think Revolutions, or Revelations, whatever the fuck it is, a third movie, before that, we were kind of all under the assumption that the machines were of a hive mind. And I think it was at the beginning of that movie where you actually got to meet the sentient programs. The programs that weren't, you had the MERV and you had those other programs that were kind of like they're off things, but it was still assumed that
the Frenchmen,
the MERV, yeah. It was assumed, though, that they were still part of, like, a larger program, that they were kind of still part of that hive mind type of thing. But it wasn't really until that third movie that you really started to get a grasp of there are sentient beings throughout the machine world. And the threat of all of those sentient beings dying because of the Agent Smith program, because that's what was going to happen. That was what was insinuated, was they were all going to die. And Neo...
It was an incorporation protocol.
And Neo even said, you're all going to die, and I'm the only one who can fix this. And even said, like, but if I'm wrong, you should kill me now, because I'm useless to you. And that's when they realized, well, wait a minute, no, he's right. This is going to happen. So I think at that point in time, the machines, so the synthetics, realized when Neo sacrificed himself that humans aren't, they didn't have to believe the propaganda that they were being fed, that humans are the worst thing in the world and need to be exterminated, and that they're only batteries. So I think that's where we get into Resurrection, where it's now 60 years later. The machines have branched off because the architect originally said anybody who wants out will be let out. So the architect, obviously the Oracle and the architect, had to keep their word there and let them out. They even referenced that there was a power shortage. They weren't producing enough, and that the machines started fighting because of scarcity.
The productivity increases the moment that the architect took power and realized Trinity and Neo.
Wait.
So that's what I'm trying to
more
explain,
to
because you were saying that you were confused on it. So once that power thing, once the scarcity started happening, the machines started attacking each other. Which then, of course, because look, you get two things fighting over the same resource. Just that's what happens. You get war. So there were machines that wanted to maintain what Neo originally said. Hey, look, this is my deal. I'm sacrificing myself so that you guys can survive. So that made a fracture in the machine world, because now you had these machines which are sentient. They have their own ability to think. They have their own ability to, for lack of a better term, feel. So there were machines that we saw in Resurrection that were on that side of like, hey, look, you did what you said you were going to do, which means I can live. So now I'm being on your side, and I'm going to help you out and continue that forward. So then when the purge happened, when the architect, I think when the old architect got kicked out and the analyst took over, the big purge happened, which that's when Neil Patrick Harrison's analyst came in, and he was even talking, productivity has been up since whatever. So he's kept all the other machines fat, dumb, and happy because they now have the power that they require. But there's still that subset of the machines that are helping humanity because humanity kept up their end of the bargain. So now the machines are like, well, look, just because this asshole's got questionable morals and saying, I'm not going to do this, doesn't mean that I have to. I still know that Neo saved me. So I'm still going to help out. That makes any sense.
Yeah, I get what you're getting at.
So
I get it now.
I love that they did the explanation of the power struggle and the way the machine wars happened and all of that because of when Neo and Trinity crashed their ship into
Machine City 01,
Machine
as it's
City,
referred to.
Right. Whenever they crashed their ship into it, how there was a massive power struggle over the energy sources because the energy dipped across the board.
I will say, though, so one of the things I found interesting was that understanding of the power struggle from the original trilogy, which was really emphasized in 2 and 3, subtly in 2, very much in 3 when you focus on Neo and Trinity's excursion into the Machine City, they then completely ignored in a way in Resurrections because the assumption was Neo and Trinity could provide enough power to supplement the nuclear power plants. This is all stuff I'm reading about.
It wasn't just those two,
connected to... Hold on. This is all connected to the Matrix Online story, which is considered canon. Their energy that they then produced together, which is, as Neil Patrick Harris put it, just far enough apart where they don't dissolve the simulation, but close enough where they create enough energy of stress and decay, or roughly the same terms, that they produced enough energy to then offset everything in terms of the machine side of things, that they didn't have to really worry, and Io wasn't necessarily a threat to them. But then you've got the destabilization with Neo pulling Trinity out of the Matrix, which you have the references to. Neil Patrick Harris says, oh, no way Trinity is going to go with you. The suits approved this meeting because this was not going to happen. We understand that the likelihood of this happening is so low, but obviously we know it did. And then you've got that excess power struggle then brought into focus. And the reason I'm bringing this all up is because the average person watching Resurrections is not going to necessarily be paying attention to the power struggle.
You keep saying average person.
I'm talking about average person. We're not. We are the average person.
Yes, yes, we are. We are the target. Hold on.
Then they're appealing to the lowest common denominator.
Hold on.
They're appealing to the lowest common denominator. That then believes that they will not understand the whole power struggle into this new film.
Relax for a second. First off, the target audience of the movie, as stated by she's not a sister, she's a girl. It was the brothers, now the girls.
Lana.
Where the fuck, dude?
Lana.
Yeah. The stated target audience was fans of the original fucking series across the board. We are the target audience. Period. End of story. We all grew up. I'm sorry, dude. I'm 38. I'm going to be 39 pretty soon, right? Like, I watched it in theaters as a fucking teenager. And, yeah, had a good time watching it. All of my friends all watched it. All of them have very similar opinions across the board to mine. And it was very interesting to see because I thought that maybe I was just the odd one out. Everything going forward. But when you say the average fucking person watching it, well, the average person watching it goes, Matrix? Isn't that an old-ass trilogy? I don't want to watch that. You know what? I'm going to go fucking watch something else.
That's what I'm getting at.
The average audience is the target audience. The people in their late 20s to early 40s.
Yes, that's part of what I'm getting at, is they don't want to touch on the complicated power struggle that is talked about in 2 and 3 and fought over. Because the power struggle throughout 2 and 3, the literal power struggle, I'm not talking about the, I want power over the universe or galaxy or whatever. I'm talking about literal energy struggle, is really only focused on by fans of the trilogy. I'm telling you, the majority of people that watched Matrix Resurrections were not hard fans of the trilogy. And I refer to hard, not hardcore, of the trilogy. People that watched all of the trilogy and now want to watch 4, their audience that got the majority of the views and streams on Resurrections 100% had to be the people that maybe watched 2 and 3, but watched it casually and really only loved the original Matrix film. That's the majority of the not the target audience, but the audience.
You're making a lot of assumptions there, man.
The film.
I think you're making a lot of assumptions on that one. I'll give it to you that it could be true, but I'm also going to say that it could not be true. But
I'm approaching it from the perspective of, if you look at the numbers,
the first movie,
the large majority of the
wait.
Majority of the
pause.
Wait, let me get this 1 point out. Damok,
dude, pause.
1 point.
Where are you getting the numbers from is what I want to know.
Rotten Tomatoes. If you look at
Rotten Tomatoes doesn't have any numbers of what it is.
So if we look at the Rotten Tomatoes, which is where I'm getting my numbers, if you look at the reviews of the first movie compared to the second and third, the first is quite a bit higher. I think it's something like 80% versus 40s for the second and third of the trilogy. And then you look at Matrix Resurrections, the logical, and I'm talking audience score, not critic score. The logical assumption is that the majority of people who watch Resurrections and then chose their opinion on the film were not traditionally fans of the trilogy. They were big fans of the first movie and may or may not have watched it. This is just my opinion.
I understand your opinion, but your opinion is based on a vast amount of assumptions. So your opinion is based on because the audience score liked the Matrix 1 over the Matrix 2 and 3, and that score of the Matrix 4 is more in line with the Matrix 1, that they must be fans of Matrix 1 and not fans of 2 and 3. That's
okay. So 88% of critics liked The Matrix 1 on Rotten Tomatoes. 85% liked it as an audience. Let's jump to 2 real quick. Let me pull it up. Fuck.
Okay, hold on a second. That's a grasp at straws, because this is a different movie.
No, the argument I'm trying to make is an assumption where if you take the fact that the first movie had a lot higher ratings, and then you jumped all the way to the next, the recent one.
I got your argument, and I'm saying that your argument is flawed, and I'm trying to do it as polite as possible.
He is actually trying to be nice.
Traditional Damok, okay? I'm saying your argument is flawed.
I recognize that, and I appreciate it. I'm running these numbers on the fly, and I love you.
I mean, I love all you guys, dude. I love all the audience members. I love everybody's podcast.
So here's the deal.
Don't get me wrong.
They dropped from mid-80s on the first film to mid-70s on the second film, and that's audience and critic. And then on the third film, Matrix Revolutions, 35% critics, 60% audience. That, I get that definitely throws somewhat of a fork in my argument. But that doesn't say that the people who watch this were only casual watchers of the second and third film. In fact, your numbers that you just gave would say that they aren't casual watchers, that they were more critical watchers of the second and third film, and then watched the fourth film.
and we're that much more critical. I mean, just judging by the numbers and saying, well, the numbers from the fourth film match the numbers of the first film, so they must be the people who watched the first film. That doesn't hold water.
So
yeah, just grasping at straws there, bud. So
fine.
Don't worry about that.
I now have the real numbers. First film was 80s. Second film was 70s across the board. Third film was 60s across the board. And now the most recent is 60s across the board, both critics and audiences. So let's take that data and let's understand that the majority, if not the overwhelming majority, enjoyed the film enough to put a positive review on Rotten Tomatoes. I get that. I get that that's not the be-all end-all of determining the quality of a film, but it's some of the most accurate statistics we have these days in determining, outside of three guys half drunk or drunk arguing on a podcast.
No.
But hold on. Your argument though was the demographic of the people who were watching it, saying that the people who watched the fourth film obviously must be people who only casually watched the second and third film and loved the first film. That's an assumption that the data that you're presenting doesn't support.
I get that. So part of the reason I was presenting that argument, though, is because if you look at the fact the first Matrix film came out in 1999, the second and third came out in 2003.
Stop looking at that.
I know this off the top of my head, and now 2021.
Let him go. Okay.
And now 2021. If you look at any other film series that has anywhere near as large of a gap between movies, typically it's a very core audience that wants to watch it. However, that film will then cater to a more general audience in order to get the views. And this is my same opinion on The Force Awakens. As Cecil mentioned, he liked that it had a lot of callbacks to Episode 4 of Star Wars. Hold on. This is an important argument to make. How many years between Episode 4 and The Force Awakens? It was 50 years, roughly, because you're talking about 76 to 2000, and what was it, 19? So it's 40-some years, and that's the continuation. Nobody really liked the prequel, so let's ignore that. Let's just go solely on continuation of the story, which is what Resurrections is compared to Revolutions. Revolutions came out in 2003. Resurrections came out in 2021. That is a 19-year difference, roughly, compared to 79,
Vintage,
78?
Get to your point, man. You're taking a long time. Get to your point.
Fine. The point I'm making is when there is such a large gap between the previous film chronologically and a current film, the filmmakers are more inclined to cater towards a kind of general audience than a very tight-knit audience of people that are exceptionally strong fans versus general fans, because obviously they want more views. They want more box office. And the last comparison I will make here is Spider-Man No Way Home. I know, Cecil, you've seen it. That is 100% a fan callback film. However, I fully agree they did it 10 times better of making those callbacks than Resurrections did to the original trilogy. And part of that...
As a person who has not seen the new Spider-Man, I can tell you that it's not a movie that was... No, I'm telling you dead seriously, that was not a fan callback movie across the board. That was a continuation of the series that was absolutely fucking needed. So I'm absolutely very interested in seeing the new Spider-Man movie, but I am not a fan of the other Spider-Man movies across the board. I am not seeing it as a fan throwback movie. I have seen the trailers. You're right, I have not seen the movie, but I have seen the trailers, and what the trailers allude to is a continuation of a storyline with a metaverse across the board, which has been exactly where the Marvel series has been going from what I've seen of all the movies so far. It may have absolutely some fan service to it, like The Matrix Revolution had a lot of fan service fucking added to it, just like, I mean, let's be honest, every Marvel movies has some fan service added to it, but overall, like, I don't see it as only a movie to fan service. The problem that I saw with fan service movies was the Black Widow movie was fan service not to Black Widow, but to set up several other fucking movies spinning off of it, and we can have a discussion about that later. But as a right. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. But as we look at the Spider-Man movie, the new one, right? It's setting up the metaverse across the board with some throwbacks from the trailer. And I'm interested in watching it, but fuck you, I won't go to theaters, and fuck you, I won't spend money on it. Oh fuck yeah!
All right. Well, hold on.
Okay,
let's get off. Let's get off the Spider-Man topic, because that's actually another like 2-hour long episode that we get into right there.
Cecil, may I just say one point?
Is it about Spider-Man?
I think the comparison is only necessary because, given the fact you've seen the movie, you've seen both movies for that matter. Even though No Way Home sets up another set of movies, it is very much a fan service movie that is done correctly.
But we got to take The Matrix and keep it agnostic and comparing it to other movies, because we have to look at The Matrix as a Matrix. And if we're going to compare it to movies, we have to compare it to its own movies, since it's a continuation of those. So, I mean,
fair enough.
There's a lot of stuff that we're getting really long on the tooth here. So let's try to summation this up here. The Matrix. Story-wise, I think had a lot of great key points in it. I think they had a lot of great opportunities where they could have had a very, very compelling and riveting story. There are definitely some plot holes in it. I think we can all agree that there are some definite plot holes in the movie. Some that can be explained in later movies if they decide to go that route, and some that honestly I don't know how they'll explain. I'll just bring this out. I don't actually want to talk about it, but just something food for thought for the listeners and for you guys as well. Like, one of the big questions that always came to my mind when I started watching this was, if there is indeed this peace between the machines and humans, or if the machines are doing their own fuck off over here and the humans are doing their own fuck off over there, why the hell are there hover ships and captains and pilots? Little kind of head scratchers around that make you go...
I understand.
But it make you scratch your head and you go, well, why? So there's little plot holes like that, which, as I said, they can explain in other movies, but they haven't yet. So I gotta just kind of give it the benefit of the doubt there. I think where The Matrix really fell short, and which makes it a bad movie, in my opinion, still. And here's what we're gonna do. Everybody will get a quick chance. I'm just going to give my brief synapse. And we're just going to try to keep this down to like a 2-3 minute synapse. Okay? So just to break this down, I think there was a lot of great places where they could have let the audience feel intelligent and get to those subtle spots themselves. I thought there was a lot of really like hard plot hole gaps that just were glaringly like huge. Like, why the hell would you go down that direction? The analyst, for one, Trinity being constantly taken over by her family and never showing it as a red flag. The whole reflection thing, I think, could have been a huge thing there. We won't even get into the after credit scene, which I think was just completely useless. But I think on a grand scale, did I enjoy the movie? There were plenty of things I enjoyed in the movie. Do I think the movie is a good movie? Not by any means. If I'm comparing it to the first, second, and third movie, I would actually put this movie as the far end, like the last one. In like good movie or not.
Now, if you had to give it a rating,
but I really hope that they take those subtleties and move forward with them. So now, 1 out of 5, I'd probably give it, if I could give it half stars, I'd probably be really low. I'd be at like a 1.5.
I'm going to defer to Vintage. I'm going to let him get his piece out, and we'll
Let's
go
let
from
Damok,
that. Vintage
you go, and Vintage, I know that you're so...
1 to 5 stars. How would you truly rate the movie?
Yep.
Got it.
Okay.
Here you go. I will reduce.
You got 2 to 3 minutes. Hit it.
I will take way less than that. I think that, honestly, the best way to describe this film is to break it down into 4 categories. The enjoyment level, how would you rate the story, the overall quality of the film, and then comparatively. Personally, I was going on a scale of 1 to 10, so I will slice that in half for your sake, Damok, because you suggested the 5-star rating. I will also then adhere to Cecil with the half-star. Enjoyment level, I'd probably put it at a 3.5 to 4 stars, personally, because there was enough callbacks where I was like, wow, this is awesome. Not that I can necessarily predict the next scene, but this is cool. Story-wise, I'd put it at like 2.5 out of 5 stars. Because I think it was a quality enough expansion of the Matrix universe, but not necessarily an expansion of the Neo storyline. Then I would say overall quality is the next one here. How well did they then branch everything all together? I would probably give that 3 stars. Do I think they did a good enough job on the story to warrant this as a new film? Yes. But does that mean I love the story? No. And then again, that plays into the quality, the enjoyment of the movie, again. And then, comparatively to the rest of the films, I'd say it's average. So, that's a tough one for me, because out of 10, I personally gave the original Matrix a 9, the second Matrix an 8, and the third Matrix a 7.5. Sure, they downgraded, but that's pretty standard for a lot of consecutive films, in my opinion. They don't necessarily hit the mark every single time unless you've got something that's spectacular. But if you were to compare the new Matrix to the trilogy, personally, I would probably put it at about a 3.5 overall. It's good enough for a watch, an enjoyment level, and a continuation of the story, but not necessarily in the sense of advancing it in a meaningful way.
Okay, so you're giving it, so your final score for entirety is 3.5. Is that correct?
Let's say 3.75. I want to give it a little bit of benefit of the doubt. Okay. And Damok, what's your hit on it?
Look, the first quarter of the movie, they had all the subtle fucking spots. Everything was great to me. I really enjoyed it. Then you had the next fucking half of the movie, right? Because it was the next 2 quarters, and I really believe that in between some spots, they had some character development, they had some storyline, but I felt like they slapped me in the face across the board with everything instead of keeping that original quarter where I really felt that first quarter of the film where they did everything was like, ooh, this is one of those movies I'm gonna have to watch like 10 times and like get all the things. So then they moved to the second 2 quarters, and I was like, well, okay, I can go along with this. I thought that it was going to be a little bit more. And then the last quarter of the movie, overall, I thought was complete and utter trash. I don't know why. I felt like it was like, oh shit, we forgot to throw in enough action. Let's just pile up all of the action in the end, and let's make it just effortless bullshit action, just so the fan base has something of a Matrix type action series across the board. Because if we're being realistic and honest, the first half of the movie was dialogue. The second half of the movie was more of the combat. Was there some interaction and combat and action scenes during the first half? Yes, there was, but it was more dialogue overall. We get into the last half of it. Honestly, I agree with Cecil at 1.5 stars. I really like the original Matrix. I don't believe 2 and 3 actually exist as real movies. But it's been really hard for me. I've been trying to digest all of this information, and I went back and I tried to watch it again, going, you know what, maybe I missed something. But I got just past the first quarter of the movie and went, nope, I remember fucking everything. Nope, this movie is trash. Nope, I'm fucking out of it. So, I'm sorry. My opinion is 1.5 stars. You should watch it once if you're a fan of The Matrix, even the first movie or the series of movies, just to close it out, because Keanu Reeves' performance in the first half of the movie is fantastic. Trinity, I don't know the actress's name, I'm sorry for that. I think that her acting was fantastic. I do believe some of the story and plot line in there where they were doing it with Morpheus, after you watch it, you won't like him at first, but after you watch it, I do believe that you might like Morpheus' scenes a little bit better when you contemplate it. But as far as Neil Patrick Harris, as far as the rest of the storyline goes, I'm sorry. 1.5 stars overall. I just didn't like it.
So first of all, Trinity is Carrie-Anne Moss. I will say that. And then I will very briefly say, Damok, I would like to ask you one simple question. How did you enjoy the film if you ignored your overall opinion?
How can I ignore my opinion?
I mean, less ignore your opinion. Did you find it fun to watch?
No, I found it very complicated to watch.
Fair enough. That's all I wanted to get out there.
On that note, Vintage, where can people find you at, man?
G.N.A. Discord. I'm trying to gain on Damok since this is a new year. I am currently 1 level behind him on the arbitrary Discord ratings within the server. Fuck everyone. I am only continuing this through January. Beyond that, I will fucking kill myself if I'm going to maintain that through the whole year. Yeah.
It's not arbitrary. Those are very important scores. Very important scores.
God damn it! He's like 12 and I'm like 11, and if we're gonna talk XP, he's like 90% there, and I'm like 70% to the next level, but like, fuck, that doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm like 1 level behind him.
It does, man.
That's all that matters until the end
1 level
of the month.
closer to Ultimate Shit Talker. That trophy, it's important.
Hey, he didn't get it last year, so all I know is as long as I come within 1 level of him, it's close enough.
What about you, Damok? Where can people find you at, man?
Look, I am always in the G.N.A. Discord, and I'm also in the Thoughts and Shots Discord. Be sure, as you're listening to G.N.A., you should check out Thoughts and Shots. Those guys are fucking great, too.
Yeah, they are. And I'm Cecil Xavier, your host. You can find me on Cecil vs. Games on Twitter, Cecil Xavier everywhere else, sometimes with an underscore, sometimes not, sometimes with a space. Who the fuck knows? But you can find me on Twitch, Ustream, Facebook. I'm definitely on Facebook. Grindr, I don't care. Tinder, Bumble, someplace. Just wherever. You can find me there. If you can't find me, you're not looking hard enough.
Okay, Cupid, given your recent
yeah, okay, Cupid, definitely there. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Reviews help people find the show, so if you enjoy listening to us, let other people know. You can find us on Podcast Addict, Player FM, Spreaker, MyTuner, Your Listen, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play Music, a whole bunch of them. So if you can't find us someplace, let us know. We'll upload there. More than happy to. We also participate we're partnered up with Humble Bundle. Humble Bundle is a game purchasing service that allows you to purchase games like you normally would, but with a twist. You actually donate to charity when you buy a bundle. So if you buy a bundle of games for $10, you can choose how much of it goes off to Humble Bundle, how much of it goes off to the developers, how much goes to charity. So you're donating to charity at the same time as buying your video games like you normally do. So go check them out, humblebundle.com, and just put that !partner equals G.N.A. podcast at the end of whatever link you're using. That'll let them know that we sent you there. Just make sure to send that slider all the way down to 0 for the G.N.A. We don't want your money. We just want you to let them know that we sent you there. What else? God, we're 3 hours into this. If you're still here, congratulations.
Oh, I got it. Damok, where can we find the website?
www. It's going to be a work in production over the next couple weeks. We're not quite there yet. .com and or G.N.A podcast.com if you really have a throwback for that 1980s high school style.
And don't forget to check out some of our fun partners like Cyberblood Arts. He's out there on Facebook. I think he's out there on Instagram as well. Go check out Microbrew Gamers with a Z at the end, .com. He's D. He's got articles out there. He does retro gaming reviews and stuff like that. Really, really cool, fun dude. Go check out Thoughts and Shots. Go check out Crap. I forgot his podcast. The Canadian Dad.
His podcast is the Royal City
Jesus,
Games
Joseph, I fucking forgot it. Sorry, dude. I am so sorry. I had a brain fart. I've also been drinking, and we're 3 hours in, so bear with me. But hey, gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out tonight. I mean, I didn't even get a quarter of the way through the notes that I had for the last movie. Like, we got so in the weeds, and it was fucking awesome. Except for you, Vintage, you fucking dick. Nah, I'm joking.
I got halfway through my notes, so you know what? I'll call that a win in my book.
It's funny because my notes were only 2 sentences. I was like, first quarter good, last quarter bad, middle okay.
No, Damok, you got through all your notes. Let's not fucking lie.
Damok's the only one who got actually through all of his notes. All the rest of us were just fucked. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. Have a great night.
Hey, man, thank you for having me. You have a great night, gentlemen.
Peace out, everybody.